that the lines that wall, they say that the truth.
Jeff Dornik, how are you, sir?
Doing pretty good. Looking forward to, chatting with you guys and diving into any which way this conversation goes.
Well,
who knows at this point?
Yeah, at this point, I mean, just judging from the off-camera discussions, this could go one of a million ways, and any of them are fine. But so, Jeff, before we get into any of the random off-the-wall stuff, you are the founder and CEO of PickAx. It's a newer social media platform designed to be human-forward and creator-forward, correct?
Yep. Yeah. And like the whole idea is so like when you're on all the rest of the social media platforms, they're all algorithm driven, which is trended away from it actually being a social network, which was what the original intention was, but actually making it very topic based and theme based. So like when you're looking at like you're going on to Facebook and everybody tells me, it's like, I'm just on Facebook to connect with my grandma and my cousin and see what my family's doing, but I can't see any of it because I'm just being inundated with all these random posts from who knows what, because I liked one random, food recipe over here. And so what's happened is social media has morphed away from connecting you to people and connecting you to topics and themes. And I think a lot of it is conditioning us for the future where they're going to be integrating artificial intelligence in every which way. So our whole idea and our mission behind PickAx is to connect humans to humans, allow people, like we will never get between you and your audience. So if you've built a following, we're never going to get in there and manipulate it, limit anybody's reach. And then the other side of it is that that you're never going to be manipulated by us because there is no algorithm to manipulate you. And so we're growing pretty quickly, getting a lot of people, a lot of really cool features we're rolling out and developing. But the big response we're getting from a lot of people is they're like, I have a fraction of the following on PickAx than I do on other platforms, but I'm getting way more engagement, way more comments, way more conversations happening because we're actually feeding your content to a warm market. So think about this, and I'll throw it back to you guys, is that if you're on X or Facebook or Instagram, typically your engagement rate is somewhere between 1% to 3%, usually on average. Could be a little bit higher, a little bit lower. If you're at 5%, you're dominating, right? On PickAx, the average across the entire platform is 36.5%. We have some people with 80%, 90% engagement rates because they're actually fostering conversations and we're feeding their content to their warm market, which is the people that told us, I want to follow this person. So to me, it makes logical sense that if you're on these other platforms, they're feeding your content to random strangers who might be interested in a similar topic, or you can come over to PickAx and we'll feed your content to the people that told us that they want to see your content. Which do you think is going to generate more conversation?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think it's some of that too is, they say like there's a place for everything, and X is great at what it does on a global scale because let's be honest, X is a news app. No matter how much we want to admit it, it's a news app with social features. And it's the same thing with Threads and pretty much any of the other social networks that have tried to clone Twitter over the years. And they, again, algorithm driven. It just becomes a glorified news app or a glorified doom scroll app. Like Threads is really good at feeding you pointless shit that you don't want to see or you don't care to see. It's like, oh, I could have gone without seeing that. But that's the one thing that has been lacking is I think a lot of small time creators, and I'm guilty of this too, get caught up in that loop of, oh, my engagement's not where it needs to be. Like, is there a reason I'm doing this? Why, like, nobody's paying any attention? And a lot of really brilliant creators get stifled that way, where, our last live stream, I think we had like 12 people on Rumble at once. And, we're a small show, we're new. So that's to be expected. But the fact that we had 12 people in the chats engaging was like, this is awesome. I experienced exactly what you were talking about on PickAx. I think my first day on there, I gained, 30 mutual followers, and it was all conversation. It wasn't just, oh, they picked my post and now they're following me. Like, there was always engagement. and it's massively refreshing.
Yeah. Well, and it's also a much more positive experience, and I think a lot of it is because, so like if you're on like X, the algorithms know that controversy and chaos breeds more back and forth, and then you're going to be tuning in to see what craziness is Candace Owens going to throw out next, and then and what's crazy about that when you actually think about it is like everybody complains about people like Candace or Tucker, which I tend to like Tucker. I think Candace is a little off her rocker and probably being misled by some CIA operatives and all that kind of stuff. But it's like, for me, if I'm on X, I could unfollow whoever I want that I think is crazy, but it doesn't really make a difference when you think about it because the algorithm will still feed that content into my news feed because it's not based upon who I follow. Whereas on PickAx, it's like I actually control who I want to see. And what's really interesting is that even when there's disagreement, it's a much more positive experience because you have this human connection because you're following that person. Or if you're seeing so like, for example, the way that our news feed works is that it's chronological based on just the people that you follow, with the exception that if somebody that you follow comments on another person's post, that gets pulled into your news feed. So it's an organic way of being exposed to new people without me having to stalk you with like an algorithm and figure out, what kind of stuff you're interested in. But there's always this human connection because it's either you're talking to somebody that you follow, or you're talking to somebody that's like a mutual with somebody else that you follow. So there's this kind of human connection, and it's, I think, subconsciously you're not willing to insult somebody that you might actually talk to in real life. And that's one of the things that we're going to be doing, and we're going to be rolling out, is doing in-person events around the country. And I think one of the cool things about that is it's going to reinforce that, do I really want to insult that guy? Because I know I'm going to see him next week at this event, and I'm going to see them face to face. And you're like, I might want to couch that one a little bit,
Well, primary example of that was, look at all the videos that came out of America Fest in Arizona. You had the MAGA chud influencers, the ones that are quite literally grifters, getting into fights outside the venue because they had talked shit on X.
I love that.
How is that conducive to anybody's common goal? It's not.
What's really neat about what Jeff's describing is, and it's a nice, pleasant difference than, all the way back to like MySpace. Like MySpace was the closest that I can correspond to this in the weirdest way possible, ignoring the fact that, who was it? Kevin Federline bought it. Let's get rid of that craziness.
Justin Timberlake bought it for a period of time.
Justin Timberlake, that's who it was. Yep. I knew it was some singer had bought it, which was insane considering like at the end of its time period. I'm pretty sure they were trying to ban the like playlist.com embeds. So they banned a whole bunch of music just for music to buy it.
Talk about Project Playlist.
Yeah. What's cool is, from what I've seen and from what you're explaining, which breaks down more of what I'm seeing, is instead of going through algorithms, your way of kind of expanding that sphere of influence is the same way as if you host a party. Your friend comes in with either news stories about something he talked about with somebody else over the week, or they bring a new friend to the party. It's not, hey, Jeff Bezos paid us $250,000 and we managed to find enough trackers in your history that we realized you want to buy a dog bed that you discussed with your wife last night at 11 p.m.
Right?
Yeah.
Because remember, nobody's listening. We're not listening to your audio.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like exactly what you're saying. It's like you're at a party, and maybe you're talking to one of your friends, and then they pull in another one of their friends into the conversation, or you're just walking in, you're just going around, you hear a friend of yours talking with somebody else, and you just hop in the conversation. It's a very similar experience, but I can assure you that I know for a fact that the technology is there for them to listen in on your phone calls, like to an even more invasive degree than people realize. So like I was actually pitched on an app idea a couple of years ago that I obviously didn't get involved in because of a variety of ethical reasons. But it was really interesting because part of what they were doing was they had to verify your employment and that you were actually at work in order for this program to work. And I'm like, well, how are you going to do that? Is it like location services? Like what are you doing? Well, they'd be able to track you, obviously through location. They'd be able to listen in on your conversations that you're having, not when you're on the phone, but just while you're there. And they would use AI to decipher whether or not this is business talk or personal talk kind of a thing. They'd be able to tell if you're standing up or sitting down. The other thing that they're able to tell,
I'm assuming that's based on health data.
Yeah. So they're able to pull in all these different things that the app stores provide to developers in order to build into the platforms. One of the other crazy things is that they're able to tell where your thumbs are positioned, even if it's not touching the screen. So then that way they know, okay, what was their thumb like, hesitating? How close did it get? Whatever it is. They're also, and I learned this when, because I have a 4-year-old right now, and so we have a video camera monitor in our back seat instead of the mirrors for being able to see him in his car seat. And what's crazy is that in our monitor, if there's like a phone directed at him, you see all these white dots. You don't see this in real life. You only see this on the camera. You see all these white dots scanning.
It's the constant emitting LiDAR that your phones emit.
Yeah. But what's crazy is like they're collecting biometric data. They're scanning face. They're scanning depth of face. They're scanning different facial features and things along those lines. If you're looking at your screen, they're watching. They can actually see where your eyes are directed, so that we know they know what's catching your attention on the screen. Even if you're not clicking at anything, they know. So it's not just what you click on the app. It's not just what you're scrolling and stopping. It's where is your eyes directed on the screen. It's wild when you think about how crazy
I made a comment the other day, and I don't want to go into the conspiracy theories right away. Like, I would love to have that conspiracy theory with people. Well, I mean, I laugh when I say this because Jeff's obviously been exposed to the side of both the theoreticals as well as the on paper documentation and the technology that was presented to him that he's experienced. That there's a certain point in which you can talk about them to a degree that's almost terrifyingly real without initiating a sense of paranoia, because the average conspiracy theory talk is what it boils down to. Here's some paranoia, here's this and the other thing. But then there's the realities. There's the realism of the situation we're in. And the fact that we have all this propaganda in other countries. We have the biggest one that I want to say propaganda-wise that we know, and some of it's real, some of it's not. We realized a lot of it wasn't when TikTok got taken down for its 24 hours, is China. People got onto that, whatever the heck it was, Red, whatever, and talked with Chinese people, and they were like, yeah, I mean, there's some areas of China that are like that, but not all of China's like that. I don't think people realize how close, and I'm not saying this to be paranoid. I'm not saying this to be fact checked. I'm just saying do your research, because I'm sure there's going to be some things here that I'm not 100% on. But the amount of systems that are already in place with the technology you have in your hands around your home that are out in public and whatnot, that are just waiting for the wrong power to seize them. Overnight, you could go like that, and we are in that position, and we've willingly walked into it.
Yeah.
Minority Report last week was the example I had gave in one of the statements. We are so unfathomably close to that being a possible reality, not in the same context that they see the future, but enough that they can detect and scan and get enough data on you to increase and be able to detect the probability of you committing certain crimes based on past trends. Absolutely.
Well, and we're seeing some of that, already enacted, the automobile kill switch. If you get into your car is going to determine whether or not you're fit to drive. So, and the example I used with Ryan was, you have a 16-year-old kid and they're, just got their license. They go out, they get in a car wreck, and you get the phone call, go to get in your car because you're anxious, and your car's like, nah, fuck you and your kid. Sorry. We're at that point. And it doesn't show any signs of slowing down, especially not with, flock cameras multiplying like cockroaches.
Right. So there's the issue with the flock cameras. There's also proposed legislation. I believe it's the legislation. I think has been passed in 2 states, and it's being suggested in more. I think California might be one that they're proposing it right now. But in regards to having to prove your identity and your age before accessing the internet at all. So they would use basically your biometric data, whether it's a thumbprint or your face, and then tie it to your ID, and then they would create the digital ID. So then that way, anywhere you went on the website would basically be your verification of your age. But the problem with that is also the data they're collecting, to where it's not just tied to an IP address, it's actually tied to your very identity. And they'll always say, well, we're not going to abuse it. Okay, right now, but all it takes is Gavin Newsom becoming president come 2028. And then what do you think they're going to do with all this crazy technology that that we basically built out the infrastructure? Can you imagine if during COVID-19 we had the flock cameras, the kind of tyranny and the lockdowns that we could have had where I live out here in communist California under Gavin Newsom? It was bad enough. There was if you were after 10 o'clock, I believe it was, you weren't allowed to drive on the freeway unless you had a specific reason of where you wanted to go. The freeways were completely empty, and if you were driving out there, you'd probably get pulled over by a police officer because clearly, I mean, you could contract COVID-19 in a car driving down the freeway at 11:30 at night.
Yourself.
But by
I
yourself.
don't know about you, but I'm leaning out the window shooting loogies at the guy in the lane next to me. So
Yeah. but think about the flock. But think about what kind of tyranny we could have had with the flock cameras. They would have immediately known. Not only there's a car out there, we know exactly who it is. We know where they're going. We can identify who they're like. It's violating so many constitutional rights. It's bonkers.
Well, and the thing that gets me, and I've been hammering on this, which we've been meaning to do like a deep dive on it, is actually worse than flock, and it's an addition to flock. It's I believe I think it's called LSAG is what the technical term by the company is, but it's signal trace. It's made by Leonardo. And basically it's just an extra sensor that they add to existing Alpers that will pick up any Bluetooth or RFID signals. So everything from your car stereo to your phone, your watch, your key to your apartment complex. Like it reads all of that. So now not only can they say, oh, well, your 2004 Honda Accord with the dent in the front right quarter panel, that's the, baby puke green. Not only was that found driving this direction, but also we pinged your phone, your watch, and all of your other personal devices.
It goes a lot further, and I'm going to go off some of this with just some info that's already out there and some knowledge of having worked in the industry with Comcast and them. I mean, Comcast is nationwide, right? Like, it doesn't matter if you're in California, Alaska, it doesn't matter where you've heard of Comcast. I don't know many people realize that they have a mesh network, which is if you don't turn it off in your router, anybody who's in range of your signal can log in with their Comcast customer information and they have Wi-Fi. If you think like, it's the same thing. It's the exact same thing. If you drive through somewhere and you've ever signed in, you'll auto sign in, which means even though that you might not be in range of that thing, which they've now offered LiDAR services, using the Wi-Fi, they can let you know if there's an intruder in your house. Was theorized. We were called conspiracy theorists. That was offered as a feature in the last year. So that is real. Your router can basically map your house and everything in it. But driving by somebody's house and connecting, Comcast is well aware. And when we got rid of net neutrality, I mean, the decay of which the initial meaning for what the internet was supposed to be of like this place that's just genuinely free and to share knowledge. And I mean, it was always going to go away to some degree. We live in a capitalist society, and I'm not arguing that that's a bad thing or anything. I'm just saying like the internet was going to become a place for commerce and stuff. But to go from the idea we have this platform for the exchange of ideas, the free exchange of ideas, to it is the most intensive micromanaging tool, and it's absolutely absurd.
Yeah.
I mean, look at Facebook.
Can I go back to the COVID thing for just a second?
Yeah,
because this is unrelated but COVID related in my brain. I went shopping in like an actual store yesterday for the first time in an incredibly long time because I'm a stereotypical man and I needed socks and underwear. And so I went to, I think it was Ross, dude. And my fiance was with me, my two kids were with me. And I watched a woman park her car with a mask on in her car. I watched her get out of the car and come into the store that I was also going into, mask on, walk into the store and remove the mask and put it in her pocket. And I just stood there going,
Opposite day? Opposite day?
And then I'm sitting there pointing it out to my fiance. My fiance's like, yeah, that seems stupid. And I was like, I don't get it.
I just don't understand it. Like, people are still wearing masks alone in their cars, but they'll walk into a Chipotle, touch every door handle and counter in there, and then pick up their burrito with their bare hands and eat it.
Well, not only that, they'll touch everything with their hands, and then they'll adjust their mask with the hands that they just touched everything. That COVID is all over. The virus is literally on the handle. They're like, oh, let me just adjust this right here on the mask that they've been wearing for 30 days straight.
I remember these, like the average masks, especially the ones that were sold off of like Amazon stuff, were just cloth.
Yeah,
It's not
literally
stopping moisture.
fabric
It's not stopping respiration.
What was it you said last week about the smell of your fart?
Oh, I said, like, look, dude, if the smell of my fart can make it through my boxers and my jeans and into your nose, that fucking mask they gave us wasn't doing jack shit to stop a virus.
That is
That's true.
scientific fact. Yes.
Back when I used to take a hit of my vape, put my mask back over and exhale, and it just went straight through the mask.
Well, yeah, exactly. So, like, there's a reason why, like, when you saw the surgeons who were actually doing stuff, like real things that were happening, they were in much more intricate suits and stuff like that. And they're like, the people like were saying, well, there's a lot more bodily fluids. It's a respiratory virus. Like, yeah, it's in your blood, but like the mask was going to do more to stop the blood from getting to you than it was the breath. There's a reason why they were wearing hard face covers to stop air and change the direction of airflow.
Well, and I was always very skeptical of the whole mask thing anyway, because at the time I was working for FedEx and I was in one of the
God bless you.
Dude, listen, while everybody else was sitting at home playing with their ass.
We single-handedly kept you in business, so.
100%. Dude, look, when we started, so we had just come out of peak season and it was just slowing down. So, you know, all the extra help got laid off and said, hey, you know, we'll call you next peak, or, you know, if we have an opening, we'll call you. The warehouse was finally getting back to normal. Everything was quiet. And then all of a sudden COVID hits, the lockdown hits, and we're in peak all over again. And so we did this massive hiring, and I was in one of the largest facilities in the tri-state area. So Pennsylvania, Ohio, West Virginia. And we had at any given time 5,000 people in this warehouse. And I always came in to load my own truck because, you know, they're hiring 18-year-old retards that don't know how to count to 10 and can't load a truck properly. So I would come in the mornings, and when they started hitting the masks hard, I was like, okay, well, if I'm standing out on the line, I'll wear one. But if I'm in my truck, I'm not, you know, fuck you. Tell your loader to just drop the shit at the back. I'll pick it up. Like, I made it through all of 2020. And the week before Christmas, I got COVID. How did I make it in close proximity to 5,000 people every morning, touching boxes that touched countless hands before me? How did I make it through almost the entire year of 2020 without getting sick?
Depends on how conspiratorial you want to get, because I've got some answers.
I mean, let's go down that rabbit hole.
I used to do a weekly show with Karen Kingston, who used to work for Pfizer, and so literally what we'd do is we would just dive into all the patents, and she would break it all down, because that's what she did for Pfizer. You know, was doing all that. So like that's all that we did, and it was really interesting because she didn't believe that it was actually a respiratory virus. She actually thought that it was aerosol attacks, which was why that you would have it to where you would have doctors and nurses that were working inside hospitals. They were never contracting it. They were in close proximity with people like all day and all night long that all had COVID-19. They were rarely contracting it, kind of a thing. But also, you know, then on the flip side as well, there was this idea that it would be like an aerosol attack. So it would drop it on like a major city or a major location, which would make sense why you were going around in close proximity for who knows how long. And then all of a sudden, a year later, you contract it. It's like, well, maybe there was an aerosol attack that happened in your location at that time.
So I'm not going to dive into it because that's not something I've looked at all. But for anybody who wants to like ever jump into the comments, and I welcome this because I love to have these little debates and give any kind of shit towards this. Let's look at the Lone Star tick, right? If you want to argue that this aerosol idea is even remotely possible, right? We have videos of like parachuted boxes into farmers' lands loaded with Lone Star ticks all across our country. Like, this is no longer conspiracies. Like they're blatantly doing stuff. There's no like false flag operations. There's no, oh, somebody went in here and made it look like this. Like these are things that are just happening almost willy-nilly anymore. Because like I said, Robert, we're under siege. That wonderful oath of protect our country from threats foreign and domestic. The domestic is non-stop week after week anymore, and it's insane.
I actually posted, and it's funny because, you know, as we get into like this next era of technology, these things become more and more plausible, because I actually posted this on PickAx today, which it is a screenshot from X. Sorry, Jeff, but
I'm offended. I'm going to censor you.
yeah, right. Yeah, what are you going to do? Censor me in your algorithm?
Yeah, right. Non-existent algorithm.
They said just in, for the first time, AI has designed complete viral genomes producing 16 functional viruses that infect bacteria and pose no threat to people.
Dude, holy shit. You're telling me we got AI driven The Last of Us
Yes.
before Grand Theft Auto 6? Holy shit.
Literally. So, like, I mean, I think it's completely plausible. And it would also explain why. So, for example, in Western Pennsylvania, you had Elk County, Warren County, Potter County, and these counties are out in like the God's land.
Yeah, that's rural as
God's
rural
land. Yeah, it's as rural as it gets. You hear banjos when you're driving through the mountains, and it's like a 3-eyed Chunk from the Goonies motherfucker on the corner playing it. Like, it is rural. It's
Yo, what are you
Hillbillyville.
doing? The Appalachian is half a mile behind my house. Fuck off.
Just, you got a purty mouth, boy. Just saying. Make you squeal like a pig. But some of the most rural counties in the state, or on the western half of the state, had almost no cases, when the rest of the counties were documenting hundreds, if not thousands. Like,
yeah. Well, it would also make sense how it's because when you think about like how quickly it's spread across the country, if you go back to the first, you know, like days, like there was like they started off with like certain kinds of, you know, certain locations would get it, and you're like, well, how did it spread that quickly in all these random spots? And, you know, it was hitting these particular major cities in different ways. And then it just, the way that it seemed orchestrated, it didn't seem like it was like an organic spread across the country, but like nothing seemed to add up, you know?
I had quote unquote COVID. I don't think I had COVID because, you know, they had those areas in the world where they were swabbing goats' assholes and the goat had COVID. But I worked at that time as a tech for Comcast.
I'd heard about that.
Through a business partner. And I mean, we were going into houses, and I mean, these aren't places where like, oh, well, maybe it was clean. Like,
no,
obviously I'm not going to get any details, so I don't think I have to deal with any repercussions. I mean, during COVID, I was walking into some houses where there was roaches falling from the ceiling, where I would have to kick cat shit out of the way of the hallway amongst the boxes to get to where I needed to go.
I had to do that on porches, bro.
So
I had to do that on porches.
If I'm walking into these houses where, you know, it's not being Lysol, they're not doing any of this stuff. There might be some old lady in the back with a respiration machine on, but I mean, that's about as close as it gets. I'm not going to count the CPAP as a mask. So honestly, probably better than the masks, but we weren't getting anything, right? Honestly. And I mean, I live in rural. At the time, I lived in one of like the larger hubs of PA. Not largest, but I was living kind of near the Reading, PA area. I'm not worried about giving that out. Nowhere near there anymore. I'm not worried about doxing or anything, but it was just crazy to go through. And like I said, they said I had COVID, and I put my 2 weeks up and a few aches and pains, but I mean, it was kind of like, it felt more like the flu than anything. And I didn't take shit.
Yeah. Well, yeah. It was crazy when we got COVID. We got COVID, you know, Christmas of that. Was it 2020? I think it was, or 2021. No, it was 2021. We finally got it, and I had been traveling around the country on airplanes and rarely wearing masks unless they actually like literally forced you to. If like you can't fly on the plane unless, you know, fill in the blank. But it was really interesting because like I was like speaking at events, and there was like conferences and people or whatever it is, and I went almost 2 years without contracting it, which was crazy, but it was wild because when we finally got COVID, and for me, I had a migraine headache for like 3 days or 4 days. Like that to me was definitely miserable, no fun. But like I never felt like I was like on death's door or like anything right. like that. But like all of our friends, it was crazy seeing there was two different responses. the people that were pro-vaccine, it was like, oh my gosh, Jeff, you guys are going to die because you didn't get vaccinated, and how dare you? Don't you regret it? Blah blah blah. And then the rest of our friends that were similar to us, they're like, congratulations, you got COVID. Now you're going to have the antibodies. And it was really interesting seeing the stark contrast between how people responded. And then it was almost like the people that were like the pro-vaxxers, they were shocked that like we survived COVID without a vaccine. It was crazy.
It's almost like whatever greater power you believe in, bless your ass with a fucking immune system.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean,
and let's be real. I apologize. I'll let you go then, Ryan. But let's be real. Early to mid COVID truly did no favors to anybody, because the amount of hand sanitizer stations and stuff we had, you wanted to learn how to breed super bacteria, sterilize and antibiotic the absolute shit out of everything and everybody as much as you can. What did we do in early situations? Because people thought it was a respiratory infection, we sterilized and hit them with as many antibiotics as we could. Who knows what they could have accidentally created, because it was we need to deal with what's now and not what's to come. And like the rate at which bacteria and stuff evolves is absolutely insane.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm really happy nothing worse came of COVID than what it was, because something could have been bred.
I'll give you a prime example. In the fag community, they, once they got the HIV problem under control with PrEP, they started having a big issue with syphilis and gonorrhea and chlamydia. And so for the gonorrhea and chlamydia side, they just started doing a program called DoxyPEP, which is post-exposure. So basically every time you have unprotected sex, you pop some doxycycline, and it's supposed to stop you from getting it. And
this wasn't on like diagnosis. This was, here you go.
This was here's like 30 pills.
It was the gay version
for
of
your
Plan B.
month. Yeah, here's 30 pills. They'll put it on auto refill every month. And so you're stocked up on doxycycline, and every time you have sex, unprotected sex, you just take 2 after. And now they're wondering, well, we're seeing more and more strains of medication-resistant gonorrhea. And it's like, well, I wonder the fuck why, because your first-line defense has been used as a plan B for how many years? Like, it's...
This is where I always say, like, like as a Christian myself, I believe that God created all of us, and God created, nature. He created our biology. He created systems in place, and there was like checks and balances when you think about all the systems that are in place. So you get exposed to a virus, you have an immune system, maybe you're going to get sick, but then you're going to build immunity, and there's all these things. And then all of a sudden, over the last 100 years or so, we thought, oh, well, we can kind of like manipulate God's intended order. We can kind of screw with things with all these synthetic stuff, right?
Right.
So they start screwing with God's intended order, and then we wonder why is it that everything's going haywire? Why is it that everybody's getting all these side effects? Why do we have chronic disease? Why are viruses, having all these different strains that we didn't have before at this rate that we've never? This is unprecedented. And I keep telling everyone, I'm like, what do you think is going to happen when you mess with God's intended order enough? This is why I always caution conservatives, and everybody just thinks I'm bonkers, but I'm like, stop saying that climate change isn't real. It is. It's just, and it is man-made. It's just all the geoengineering we're doing. It's shooting heavy metals up into the sky, and then we wonder why everything's going haywire. It's like, yes, it is. And I almost feel like what's happening is we're being lied to by the powers that be, telling us the truth. Like, they're literally telling us there's man-made climate change. Obviously, they're lying about what's causing it. But yes, there is man-made climate change. It's because you're shooting crap up into the sky that you shouldn't be shooting up there. And you've got guys like Bill Gates that think, oh, we should block the sun with these heavy metals and make sure that the sunlight can't come in. What do you think's going to happen with that when we can't get vitamin D anymore? It's bonkers when you think about it.
Well, wasn't it Dubai that they were messing with? Like cloud seeding.
They were using the aluminum nitrate or whatever the heck it was, particles to do rain seeding.
Yeah,
I don't remember
and
what
then
the
they
exact
wound up
chemical
with...
is. It's aluminum something, because it has horrible detrimental effects to the actual nature itself.
Well, they're in the desert.
Meanwhile, 15 years ago, my grandmother was convinced I shouldn't drink Pepsi out of a can because the aluminum can was going to give me cancer.
Right.
Well, it's
yeah. No, go ahead.
Which it might.
it's super funny because have you guys like I think did we discuss it before or was it somebody else? Have you guys seen the glitter conspiracy?
I fucking hate glitter. Go on.
Whatever the largest like purchasing of glitter is in the world, they're not allowed to tell anybody. And their exact answer was, you'd be surprised. You'd never know it's glitter. You could sit there and look at it until the sun comes on. You'll never identify it. And one of the things that I was always wondering was like, glitter seems like a great seed if you grind it up even further into the aluminum stuff for rain seeding. And I won't go into weather control, but like the heavy metal distributions and light metal distributions into our atmosphere for different purposes and testing points. To seed a cloud, imagine how many pounds of glitter that would take to try and get rain over a desert.
So wait a minute. Are you telling me it wasn't the chemicals in the water turning the friggin' frogs gay? It was the glitter?
Well, I mean, but this is the thing. Like, so in California, you can look up the government contracts for cloud seeding, and actually the ski resorts up in the mountains, they're actually some of the biggest funders of cloud seeding in California because they need the snow during snow season.
That makes sense.
So what they're actually doing is they're doing cloud seeding. They're shooting silver iodide up into the clouds in order to seed the clouds. But if you actually
silver iodide?
Yeah, and so you actually look up silver. What does silver iodide do? Well, it actually destroys biological life. So when it falls, so you're shooting silver iodide to make rain, and then the rain comes down and destroys actual
rain.
living biology. And then think about this. Over the last 10 years or so, we've had some of the worst wildfires out here in California. And it's like, okay, why are we having these crazy wildfires now and not 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 50 years ago? Well, we're shooting silver iodide up into the sky, and then it's raining down over all the brush, all the grass across all of California, destroying it, killing it. And then it's just like a breeding ground for wildfires because we just killed biological life by the rain that we injected synthetic material into. Like, this is where I keep coming back to. You're screwing with God's intended order. Just shut up, sit back, and let God work things out the way He intended.
I don't understand what was so hard about just sitting back and enjoying Newgrounds. Like, what was so bad about the early 2000s?
Well, here's the thing. We as human beings, we have done some things that you can call it meddling with God's grand design, but like the early vaccines, they were dead virus. They were exposing your body to the actual virus. It was allowing your body to naturally build up an immune system to the real thing.
And that's been a practice for many years, by the way. Like, that's not new technology in the slightest.
No. And that's what I mean by that. Wasn't so much with it wasn't messing with nature because you were still using nature. You were just intentionally introducing it to the body.
Immune system do its job by handing it a weaker fighter.
And now, meanwhile, we have this new mRNA flu vaccine expected this fall after FDA approval. This was Thursday, August 6th. This was posted today. So now they're talking a new version of the flu shot made by Moderna.
Where have I heard that name before?
Oh, yeah, I know, right? They must be a new company. They've definitely never had a hand in massive pandemics.
I thought RFK Jr. promised us no more mRNA technology. You're telling me that RFK Jr. approved an mRNA shot?
They all pissed the wall. So. Everything they said was a lie. I'm not trying to be mean when I say that or be argumentative, but the second they kissed the wall, every word that left their mouth was just lies from then on.
Oh, so for use in all adults 50 and older. Okay, so are you telling me that it's only for 50 and older, so we're getting rid of the boomers? I might be for this.
Congress is about to look a lot better.
I'd like to know, unironically, does Bill Gates have any influence directly with Moderna? It's not something I'm aware of. Like, can we do some research real quick live on Bill Gates and Moderna? So, because this feels like that let's eliminate 10% off the top.
So I'm curious to see, because last August, RFK said most of these shots are for flu or COVID, but as the pandemic showed us, mRNA vaccines don't perform well against viruses that infect the upper respiratory tract. Here's the problem. mRNA only codes for a small part of the viral proteins, usually a single antigen. One mutation and the vaccine becomes ineffective. So then why now are we
In
Are we
2020,
allowing
the
this?
In 2020, the Gates Foundation made a $20 million grant to Moderna.
Yep. So they granted full approval for the
and
vaccine's use.
specifically for mRNA-based approach to preventing HIV infection. So this was an investment into mRNA technology.
That man.
So this is what's even worse, though. Take the U.S. population. Anybody know it off the top of their head?
U.S. population, was it 350
What, the
million?
world's population is like almost 8 billion. So like I would imagine the U.S. is somewhat close to just under
335 million. I think it's 335 million or something.
Yeah, 335,
So-
350, somewhere in there.
And they based this full approval on a 40,000 person clinical trial.
Well, but this is the thing about their quote unquote clinical trials. And I did a show on this when the FDA did their approval of the Comirnaty mRNA vaccine for COVID. And I only had a gut feeling that I was right. I didn't know, but so I was taking a risk by doing this live. So I pulled out the FDA approval letter, and I'm like, let's do some math live on the air. So I pull out my calculator on my phone, and I'm like, okay, so let's look at this. So I went to the FDA approval letter, and then I clicked on the link that took me to the actual study. So the actual report that went along with the FDA approval, that the FDA approval letter relied upon in order to justify approving the mRNA vaccine for COVID. And so I start doing the numbers, and you realize that they did a study of 40,000 people. 20,000 of people were vaccinated and 20,000 people were not. And you're like, okay, that sounds fair. And then out of the entirety of that study, about 130 people contracted COVID. Okay, so out of 40,000 people, both vaxxed and unvaxxed, 130 people contracted COVID-19. Now, there was a discrepancy between the vaxxed and the unvaxxed, according to that, although later on we found out that they were actually fudging the numbers and weeding people out that they weren't supposed to and all that kind of stuff. But you look at the numbers, and so that's how they figured out that it was a 95% efficacy rate, was that they compared the 133 people that contracted it, and they compared the difference. They didn't compare the difference between the 40,000. So if they compared the difference between the 20,000 people that were vaxxed and the 20,000 people that were not vaxxed, the entire difference was 0.7%. So whether you were vaccinated or unvaccinated, you had a more than 99% chance of not contracting COVID-19. But they didn't tell you that. They told you that it was a 95% efficacy rate, when in reality, you had a less than 1% chance of contracting COVID-19 according to that study. And then the crazy thing that we found out later was that the entirety of that study lasted for 7 days after vaccination. But they technically didn't count you as vaccinated until 14 days. So they were only looking at the 7 days after injection. And on top of that, if you go look at that letter, they actually kept track of how many people died over the course of those 7 days. But they didn't include that number in the results because they didn't find it pertinent and relating to the actual study that they were doing. So they knew, I believe, if I remember correctly, it was something like 14 people died within those 7 days after injection. But those were not included in the results. So when we're talking about this, again, this is another, what was it, 40,000 people? Probably the same type of study and setup and all that kind of stuff. The entire thing is rigged, and I'd be curious to actually look at the actual study and see the kind of numbers that they're using to justify it.
Well, I mean, they definitely rigged it because remember, winter of 2020 was going to be, quote, a winter of severe illness and death for the unvaccinated. I'm going to be, and granted, maybe this is just, my network, but I was in a greater metro area at the time. I don't know one person that died from COVID personally. I know a lot of people that died from comorbidities.
I know people that died from the vaccine. I don't know people that died from COVID.
There's a few things here I think need stated. So first off, at no point is there any denial here that people died of it, right? But I will say there was a large incentive for that. Correct. Hospitals were straight up paid, depending on how many reports of COVID related deaths were coming out, not to report it, not saying hey, let us know when it happens so that we can keep our information updated as fast as possible. Make sure to give you an incentive the more updates you give us. It was per report of the COVID thing. So like free kickbacks all day, right?
And it was a good chunk of money too.
Yeah. So like you had people all over the place. Oh, somebody died because of a pulmonary embolism. Oh, somebody died because they had an aneurysm. Oh, somebody died because they had a collapsed lung in general, like they got stabbed and had a collapsed lung. COVID.
Yeah, well, and it's not even so much as that. If somebody had a heart attack and died, but they had COVID at the same time, it was just, oh, yep, no, it was a COVID death. Definitely wasn't the heart attack.
Yeah. Well, but the thing to also consider is that to me, looking at the way that all of this rolled out with COVID, like this was clearly an intentional thing by China. I like, for me, I don't think that there's any excuse that this was not a bioweapon. I don't think that there's any excuse that, that this wasn't intentionally released. In my opinion, I mean, you look at what was happening with the what was it, the Olympic or the whatever the games were that were happening. I think it was in Japan at that time, where they actually believed that a lot of the initial COVID started distributing around the world. Then you look at the cover up by our own government. We know for a fact that China has infiltrated a huge amount of our government. As well as, people like Fang Fang that are sleeping with Eric Swalwell, and you look at Dianne Feinstein, whose driver was a Chinese spy, and like all this kind of stuff. Out here in California, we actually had a mayor that was arrested for being a Chinese spy, which is crazy. But then on top of that,
Don't trust China. China is asshole.
But then you had all of our politicians basically saying you're not allowed to call this a China virus. You're not allowed to say that this came out of China or for Wuhan, or else you're a racist against Chinese people. But here's the
stop Asian hate.
We have a freedom under the Constitution to say it came from wherever you want. You can call us a liar. You have every right to call us a liar. You don't have the right to imprison me for any of that nonsense. Free speech is free speech.
Well,
right.
They didn't have to imprison you.
But think about this though. So if you go back, you remember they used to have all the tickers on all the news that was saying how many people had COVID, how many people died, and all that kind of stuff. You ever looked into where those numbers came from? So there was a website that basically every single news outlet. So if you go back to the early days of when they were tracking all those tickers, they would always cite this one website. So I went and did a deep dive in this. I'm like, okay, well, who's running this? It ended up being two college students out of Nevada that the entirety of the mainstream media was relying on the data from. There was two students, I believe it was from University of Las Vegas or UNLV, I think it was. I could be wrong, but it was in Nevada. It was two students from China that were going to school in Nevada that ran the entire website that every single mainstream media outlet was using for those tickers. And you're just sitting there and you're like, okay, so why? Like, we're not relying on like HHS. We're not relying on the FDA. We're not relying on any government entity. We were relying on the aggregated information from a Chinese student-run website.
To be fair, how is that any different than relying on the amount of corruption we have in there? Our government groups are asinine incompetence. Our CDC can't get their head out of their ass. Our FDA was started up being allowed to take money from companies that have an interest in having things pushed through the FDA. None of the three-letter alphabet army nonsense that's going on for our government gives a crap anymore. It's about them, and it's about their bottom dollar.
I think
we weren't going to get much more accuracy than two Chinese kids in Nevada. Go ahead, Ron.
I think we're better off. I think we're better off if it is incompetence and not intention.
Yeah, if it's malice, then we have a much bigger problem, and 1776 needs to rise again. But to Rowan, to your point, and I'm going to tie this back into PickAx, they didn't need to imprison you. You were already imprisoned inside your home.
No, I wasn't.
In a lot of states, They
it was the most alcohol I think I've ever drank in a short period of time.
You know, the craziest experience that I had being locked down out here in California was we used to live like walking distance from the beach, and it was like literally around the corner behind us, and we could get to the beach. And so I would go out and I'd go jogging along the beach every day and all that. And again, because it's COVID, it's just everybody's crazy. But luckily where I was, because we're kind of like this little red bubble down here in California, and so a lot of people weren't masking and all that. So I go down by the beach, and I'm down by the pier, and there's military helicopters going up and down the beach about 150 feet up, so very low, with loudspeakers yelling at everybody to go back inside, and that if we didn't, they were going to start arresting people. But like and I think I've got footage on my phone of like filming it, of just like literal full on guys, like military guys with their masks on, and you could literally see them plain as day because they're so low, hanging out the side of the helicopters, going around and just shouting at everybody with loudspeakers to go back inside because you're going to die from COVID. Like that was like a full on apocalyptic movie experience. Where you're
It's like Red Dawn.
Yeah,
no, that's more like 28 weeks later.
Do you realize how crazy accurate that was now to your previous aerosol statement and theory? They were shouting with masks that didn't do anything but redirect the respiration, right? With a helicopter rapidly pushing that respiration down onto the people they were yelling at, just infecting everybody.
Exactly. Maybe that's how it spread. They just
you can't make this shit up. Like if one of them was infected, them doing that was way more harmful than just having some sort of speaker. Like we have like hurricane and whatnot, tornadoes and like, hey, there's a missile coming, sirens. Like take over some of the ones that are digital and not like mechanical, just to make the noise, and just tell people to get out that way. Stop adding to the respiration.
But those are what are they going to use as the sound? I mean, you have to find something. So are they just going to find like some blue-haired liberal to shriek into a microphone, and they're just going to play that over the fucking loudspeaker?
Have you ever pissed off a woman and then told her to calm down? She's acting crazy. Do that and then give her the script.
That's great. So, so to my point, they didn't need to imprison you because you were already stuck inside your house. They were pushing social distancing. And so a lot of people at the time turned to social media or turned to, online gaming, whatever, for a social experience. And then came the Biden administration that was pressuring companies like Meta and Twitter and everybody else at the time to ban and suspend accounts that pushed misinformation. They didn't need to imprison you because they could assassinate your character.
That was such a Black Mirror episode. Like the reality of what we went through in that regard was such a Black Mirror episode. It's ridiculous.
Right. And so my question to you, Jeff, is, in a position like that, being somebody that, obviously now runs a social network, there is, I'm sure a lot of the folks that run these, they do feel a sense of duty to protect people to a certain extent, right? When it comes to content moderation, obviously there's, I assume, a certain level of moderation on PickAx. I'm assuming it coincides with the law. But, in a position like that, what kind of approach would you take, or would PickAx take as a company, to those kinds of things? I mean, whether it's like a community notes feature where, the rest of the community can correct facts or details. I think there's ways to do it that aren't draconian, but, into that position, what's the stance you'd take?
Let free speech reign. It's, again, it's our God. This is what our founding fathers taught, believed when they established this country, was that you are created in the image of God, and because you're created in the image of God, you have certain inalienable rights that cannot be taken away by the government. And the government doesn't give you these rights; they're just recognizing them, and it's their job to protect them and preserve them. So, like in the midst of COVID, the best thing to do is let more information out, let people debate, let people discuss. Instead, they try to shut down the conversations. I was permanently banned off of Twitter for interviewing a Black conservative that was running for Senate out in Illinois in the middle of COVID. And I asked him why the African-American community was much more hesitant and less likely to get vaccinated than the rest of us. And he brought up the Tuskegee experiments. He's the one that said it. I asked the question. I get permanently suspended for asking the wrong question during
crazy.
that. And then my next show, I was interviewing Dr. Zelenko. And I'm like, well, I don't have to hold back anymore because I'm already off of Twitter. I'm not allowed back on there. So I can do what I want with my headline. So I ran with a headline of basically quoting him of saying that it's a poison death shot that's starting World War III. And my buddy Matt Couch shared that, and he got permanently suspended for sharing my show with that headline. But what was crazy was that even with like the censorship stuff, like Spotify banned the podcast network that I was running for a period of time because we were talking about election fraud one too many times. And then not only did they ban us from Spotify, but they actually went after our podcasting hosts. It was Transistor, and then it was one other one. And they literally told them, if you allow Freedom First Network on your platform, you will not be able to distribute any podcast to Spotify. So obviously they kicked us off really quick. But it was crazy going through that experience. And that was one of the reasons why I wanted a social media platform built where that actually respected free speech. Because right now, like everybody always says X is a free speech platform. It's not, because the First Amendment literally talks about that the government can't abridge speech. The whole idea is that you can't limit speech. It's not, it wasn't like the First Amendment was not just about like shutting people down and not allowing them to talk. It was about limiting speech. So the equivalent of like shadow banning, like what we're seeing on social media, would be the equivalent of like in the early days of saying that like, yeah, because the whole idea was that you had freedom of speech, which was you could verbally go out and say whatever you want. You have freedom of the press, which is not licensed credentialed journalists on CNN can say whatever they want. It was that you as an individual could go down to your local printing press, write out your grievances, have them print up a bunch of pamphlets, you print it, you go distribute it freely without restriction from the government, without limitation. But the equivalent of shadow banning would be saying, well, yeah, the printer's only allowed to print you 20 pamphlets, but they're allowed to print this other guy 100 because we agree with his speech. That's the equivalent of what's happening on these social media platforms, is that there is a policy on X right now, and I believe it's still in place, and they were really bragging about this. And I'm like, this is not something you should be bragging about if you're a free speech platform. The policy is that you have freedom of speech, but not freedom of reach, which means they'll let you say whatever you want, allegedly, but they're not, that doesn't mean that they actually have to let anybody see it. And I think that that's where we're seeing the censorship happening today, where it's not the same kind of overt censorship like what we had during COVID. It's the artificial limitation to where you can't actually get your message out there. So they're dangling the carrot of free speech, but they're not actually allowing you to practice it because they're limiting your speech. And so for us, I believe that anything that's legal, you're allowed to post on there. The one exception would be pornography. We don't allow pornography on the platform. And that was going to be
my next question.
Yeah, I always
because there's a debate on that, whether that falls under free speech or not.
Is Robert's camera off for anybody else?
No, it's
on.
I would say it's black for me. So.
Yeah, well, I always get the free speech.
Excuse me, sir. Why you got to make this about race?
Right?
My waist is not on camera. Waist down would be the black. All right. Come on. Rude.
I call bullshit.
You know what? Listen, I don't want to talk about it. You're not allowed to wear gray sweatpants. All right. So
I'm not allowed to wear gray sweatpants on camera. That's a rule enacted by my fiance.
Mind your business. All right. You have subtle brags like that. I just come right out with it. All right. You know what? You wear skinny jeans unironically. How about that?
Yeah, I do. I'm going to continue until I die, probably, unless I find something that I like more.
So I had a few questions. Robert, you were starting to say something when I mentioned the camera, so I'll let you finish saying your thing. But I had a few questions relating to PickAx itself and kind of to get an inside understanding of Jeff. And there's a whole bunch I'd love to talk to him about one of these days if we ever get a chance to do one where we're not live, more to say, so I can just understand more about the person who's behind something that I'm starting to use. Because it seems like a promising platform, and I like so far what I'm hearing. But I do have a few questions that I feel more comfortable asking him in a situation where he's going to be able to give answers.
Yeah, I'm game. I'm game for whatever. I mean, I've never had a question unless it was about a feature that we're working on for the future that I haven't answered. So yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, Robert, did you want to finish whatever you were saying before I made the I can't see your webcam statement?
Yeah. No. I was just making a point that there is a debate on whether or not pornography is free speech, and it's not.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's waters have been muddied a time too many as everything has shifted towards a video first platform. Now, if a website wants to allow it, especially something like X, where if you want to be verified, you have to submit an ID. There needs to be age restrictions in place, because I don't want, a 15-year-old to be scrolling through Instagram and then pow, cock in the face. Like, doesn't need to happen. So I do love that's the one rule is like no pornography.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
Well, because the thing that I always get the free speech absolutists, and I get it because they're basing it off of the Supreme Court ruling. I just disagree with the Supreme Court ruling because if that was actually considered free speech in the way that the founding fathers intended, you wouldn't get arrested for going into your middle of your town square, taking off all your clothes and having sex in front of everybody. You would get arrested and thrown in prison for indecent exposure. And so for me, you're not allowed to go have sex in front of everybody in your local town square, I guess, unless you're in San Francisco, maybe. But like, it's not a right in public, so it can't be a right online. And I think that that's the difference, is that, you know, you're not allowed to do it in your actual town square. You're not allowed to do it in my digital town square. And so I feel like it's a pretty consistent justification from that standpoint. Again,
well, and if it was a free speech issue, that would. Why is porn only filmed in really two states in the country? Right. Primarily Florida and California.
Yep.
Because other states don't allow it. So obviously, I mean, especially as you monetize, like there are states that go into sin taxes and everything else. And that whole back end, like the fact that there are people making money on X for posting pornography is mind-blowing to me.
Yeah. So I'm going to use that to kind of segue into a few things. I've noticed that there's and I'm not judging any of this. I'll start by saying, just because there's more information about me, if I'm going to be on a little bit here more and whatnot, I am agnostic. I think the majority of my beliefs do come from the principle of the ideas behind the Bible.
You're going to burn in hell.
I'm not going to argue anything. I'm not jabbing anybody. I find it very hard to take the Bible at face value. Only for the sheer fact of, if I whisper a sentence into a friend's ear and he does that 50 people down the line, you're gonna have a totally different sentence by the end of it. And the amount of times it was written down and passed down, and the amount of times a human could have easily injected their own ideology into it, I find it hard. I do believe in a greater being. I do believe that there is a Jesus who died for us. I do believe many things, and it hasn't always been that way. The more research I do into the world, the more research I do into science, the more research I do into technology, the more I think it becomes undeniable that there is a greater being. I think the one quote, I don't have the exactly, but the one person I quoted saying that most scientists, as they enter the world of science, have forsaken God, and any of them who have stayed long enough to have lived a life around science have discovered the irrefutable belief that there is a God, because there's no way it can explain it all. And I think we'll always get closer to explaining more and more things. But if we look at stuff like quantum technology, once we started to understand enough of it to step into it, the amount of questions that expanded out of that, you know what I mean? You can always
you answer 10 questions and you raise 100 more.
Yeah. So I do see that you have a lot of Christianity themes and some of your podcasts and whatnot like that. So I'll kind of combine them so it's an easier for you to get the answer out for both of them. Between the nudity, as far as we'll break it down, for instead of nudity, we'll do the people who are going to pander with hot tub streams, because they're going to use the loophole of, well, I have a 1.5 inch cloth, a piece of cloth across my nipple. That's not nudity. As well as the religious side of the freedom of speech. Do you have like any kind of like idea where the clear boundaries for what you guys really deem your lines fall into on those regards?
Yeah, so right now, the ban is on nudity and sex and pornography and all that kind of stuff. I'm sure that there may be certain kinds of different things that obviously we're gonna have to consider as time goes on, for full transparency. Also on the flip side, the nice thing about being a non-algorithmic platform is people get to really control what they see. And so like, for example, if you're on X or you're on Instagram or things like that, things will randomly be thrown at you for a variety of reasons, and you have no control. Like for example, there was that video of Perez Hilton that was going around like crazy on social media the other night. Like it was that was like when you see that kind of a thing, it's disturbing. It's all of that. You know, my wife doesn't want to see it. Like, my wife is on Instagram. She follows food bloggers. right? Like she doesn't want to see that. And she saw that on Instagram, and not from somebody that she follows, but because the algorithm threw that into her newsfeed. And so I think that, to a certain degree, like there's, when you have a free speech platform, it can get messy. And I always tell everybody that like people are going to say some really stupid crap. People are going to post some really stupid crap and stuff that you don't want to see. But the nice thing is that you can control your news feed to a certain degree, because if you don't like what somebody posts, you can block them, you can unfollow them. There's a lot of different things that you can do to protect your news feed yourself. Without me having to step in and do the censorship for you. And also, I'm not going to be injecting that kind of stuff into your news feed like you would be getting on some of the other platforms. So I think that on one hand, obviously, we're going to be banning, sex and nudity and all that kind of stuff. On the other hand, I know that I don't want to go too far in censoring content, because I still want to be true to the free speech kind of principles. And I think that the nice thing for people is that, outside of the banning of sex and nudity and all that kind of stuff, is you can kind of control your own newsfeed from that standpoint.
By having that more holistic thing, it's a little bit more up to you. You're still going to have outliers. We all have those friends that, as much as we love them, are into something that we're not. And because of how that friend of a friend thing happens, it's going to happen from time to time, but you can just quickly block them. It should happen significantly less than it does on places like, I'm even going to drop Twitch on here because I feel like they've really gone downhill with allowing hot tub streams on their front page and stuff like that, just because algorithmic pandering. So that's really cool to hear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, and it's the free market, man. It's if somebody's posting content people don't want to see, the market will allow for that correction.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well,
people will just be like,
right now the market isn't allowed to, like, you're not allowed to truly control your newsfeed. And this is where everybody keeps, saying, like, and again, whatever you guys' opinions on are fine. But like in my opinion, Candace Owens has gotten completely off her rocker. Right. And I think for me, with her, in my opinion, this is just, somewhat of a, rabbit trail, but like, I think that she's being fed information by somebody from one of the intelligence agencies, giving her a lot of true information, mix it with a bad, so that way you can use the bad to discredit the good. And they're using this so that way you don't ask questions about what really happened to Charlie Kirk. But because it's convenient. She can never actually provide solid evidence outside of these are some text messages. She's just being fed info. But
what they say about rabbit trails, right? You follow them long enough and then you find out the T's silent.
Damn. What? Jesus. Okay.
That was a necessary one. Yes, I have that on the soundboard. There's a reason. What
I was going to say though about Candace is that if Candace was on PickAx, you could block her and never see her content again. Or you could unfollow her and never see your content again, right? If you wanted to. But the problem is that when you're on some of these other platforms, like you're not following her and you're like, I don't want to see her stuff, whatever it is, but it's still being injected. Like you could be following her and say like, look, she's crazy. I unfollow her because I don't want to see her stuff anymore. And you're still going to see her content because the algorithm sees its chaos, its craziness, it gets engagement, it makes the money. They're going to keep injecting. So again, it's one of those things where even when it comes to the crazies, like you don't, as a platform, have to censor them. Just stop putting their content into other people's newsfeed. Let people decide for themselves, and then you allow the marketplace to speak based upon who wants to follow who, kind of it.
Well, and they don't even, they say, oh, we'll mute somebody, oh, block somebody. Okay, fine, sure, cool. But when somebody reposts them or quote tweets them, then all of a sudden, the curiosity kills the cat. This post is from someone you blocked, and you're like, oh, what's that? Well, it's Crazy Candace again. Like, it's completely counterintuitive. It's the illusion of control is what it is. And so
it's interesting to me because it feels like PickAx almost takes on a role of a jury, not in the sense of its intent to judge, but in its intent to allow people's actions to be presented to anybody who chooses to like be present for it, and then to make the judgment themselves. Doesn't mean you got a hate crime. Doesn't mean anything else. You're going to see more natural rise and fall of we'll call them web celebrities or whatever you want to call them, or whatever's trending and stuff like that. And it's no longer driven by the bots, the fake numbers. You want to know why you have proper engagement on PickAx compared to these other ones where you're lucky if you get above the 1-2, because the numbers actually mean and are bound to something behind. It's not about pandering. It's about holistic collection of people. The mindsets will group, the clicks will happen. It's high school theory, but without the bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and so back to the moderation topic. Obviously there's a feature that you can report posts. Obviously there's a way you guys discover if somebody's posting porn, ban them. Is that, now is that 100% human moderated? And as you scale, how do you plan to sustain, if that's the case, if it's human moderation, how do you plan to sustain that level of human interaction? Obviously that comes at an expense, a great expense.
I'll update the terminology on there only because even if there is an algorithm to help go with that based on certain things, is the human loop, that's the term for it within association of AI, is the human loop ever going away? And if not, how is it going to scale with it? I believe is what you're asking completely. Right.
Yeah.
Well, I want to know first if there's anything outside of human moderation.
Right. So when it comes to the sex and nudity, this is one of the few implementations of AI. So we use AI in a few different ways. One of them is to scan photos and things like that that are updated, and then it'll scan it for it. And then what it'll end up doing is that it'll put it back to us, and then one of our moderators will actually review it to make sure that it actually is, and then they'll make that judgment call. So we'll use AI and we'll use technology to do the scanning and things like that, but we're not allowing AI to just go rogue and make judgment calls. There's still that human element standpoint from that standpoint.
So, and then as far as scaling, I mean, is that always going to be the game plan? Is to make sure it maintains
as of right now, yes, but again, we will adjust depending on where the needs are, I guess you could say. So I'm not going to 100% commit that in every single instance, because I can't promise into the future. But my goal with what we're doing with PickAx is to have as many human hands and as little AI making decisions. I don't mind using AI as a tool. I don't want AI making decisions. It's the same justification that I use in what I'm concerned about certain aspects of AI implementation within the government, where they're actually using it to make decisions and judgment calls. I don't like that. If you want to use it as a tool, that's one thing, but I still want that human accountability, if that makes sense.
So three things on this. One, did you see that they're running into a problem with the AI and the wartime simulations? Where from many situations right now, out of nowhere, it finally just taps out and sends off a nuke, and it sends off a message just quote, "I just want peace." It taps out, it gives up on trying to solve it and just nukes something in the simulation. Two, I find it funny that that's why I brought up the human loop. What I do is software engineering. I'm sure, Jeff, you know plenty of people in that industry. So I brought the human loop on tops of the AI because that's usually where it falls into. Yes, you have the humans who do the training of the AI and whatnot, but the human loop means that there's a wall. There's that human final facade, not facade, whatever the term is. I'm trying to. It's the human wall at the very end that blocks the AI from being able to commit anything to the final part. The pleasant thing for Jeff is, since he's primarily using it to detect porn, you have plenty of free sample data on the internet to map against.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So, which by the way, speaking of what you're saying about the AIs going rogue and dropping nukes and all that kind of stuff, this was all predicted. Yeah, I would say if you watch movies, it's about 20 years behind, ahead of what ends up happening. So about 20 years ago, there was a movie with Shia LaBeouf called Eagle Eye that was all about AI going rogue and blackmailing Shia LaBeouf to go basically take out the entire chain of command of our government because the AI felt like our government was making the wrong decisions. And I forget if it was to go to war or not go to war. It was trying to manipulate them into doing it and felt like the entire chain of command was making the wrong decisions. So let's off them all and then the AI will take over. Like that was predicted 20 years ago. And that's now basically coming to fruition in simulation.
Oh my God. Okay. I'm going to go put a gun in my mouth because that movie was released in 2008. That was almost 20 years ago. Jesus Christ.
That's the year I graduated high school.
Yeah. So, but if you look at movies, it's usually about 20-ish years. The technology or the things that they're talking about, give it about 20 years and it'll come to fruition. And this is where I start getting into, again, my conspiratorial mind, but the more research I'm diving into it, the more I'm finding legit stuff is that, so if you look at the last phase of the Marvel movies, right? So before the multiverse, you were dealing with the quantum realm, right? So like Ant-Man and Avenger, like all that kind of stuff, right? Like what was the quantum realm in the Marvel movies? It was basically opening up a portal to access otherworldly beings and other intelligence and all that kind of stuff. And there was all these, access to people and things and all that kind of stuff and all these other realms essentially was the entire underlying theme of defining what the quantum realm is. Well, now that we're talking about like quantum computers and like all that kind of stuff, the more that I dive into a lot of like the origins and like the what's really going on, it sure seems like a lot of these guys are into some like occultic let's try and open up some portals. I know for a fact I got a friend that was high up in the military. I'm not going to say who it was. That said that he actually saw that in his base they were actually testing time travel through opening portals, and that the military was actually getting really close to it. And so his theory was actually that the UFO technology that we're seeing today is not actually from other planets; it's from the future. Because he's like at some point they cracked it. And then it could be anywhere from 50 years in the future to 5,000 years in the future, because once you crack time travel, it could be to infinity kind of a thing. So I don't know, but
I want to bring up the Hadron
predict
Collider
within the next 15 years or so, we're probably going to be seeing some portals opening for the quantum realm.
So there's some things here. How far down this rabbit hole do we want to go? How much do we want to commit to this?
I'm just bummed because Star Wars came out in like the late 70s and I still don't have lightsabers.
We're in the area of conversation stuff that I like to follow up on. So like we can go down this hole, but like I want to know from Robert, how much do you want me to commit to this bit?
Well, let's start here and see where it goes, because we just talked about this. I think it was last week or maybe 2 weeks ago with CERN shutting down the Hadron Collider and how everything has just felt weird. Like, and the Fireflies, like,
yep, the return of the Fireflies. And that goes into a lot of things. And I think one of the things I'd like to bring up in this before I even dive into the other things, because it all kind of boils back down to one part. And I think Jeff will like an example I use here. But Ryan will tell you, like Ryan Thomas over here, I talked to this man so much of my life, it's not even funny. He can attest, I'm not a very biblical man. So what I'm going to do here is very against my nature. But at the very beginning of how we understand the Bible, and even back to Enochian texts, which were used to begin the scaffolding of the Bible, if we look back in how Enochian lore works, God or the greater being, whatever you want to look at him as, spoke things into being. Which means sound is so crucial. And we've seen it throughout history. We see people who hypothesize that the gates can be opened with noises. We see people who hypothesize that our health can be fixed with frequencies below between like 7 and 14 hectahertz or gigahertz or whatever that it is. I don't have the exact numbers. You can follow these. The 7 and 14 things real. I forget the exact scale of hertz that it is, but it's in that range. You have so many things. And it's funny that like the Rife machine, the man was curing diseases by hitting our bodies with certain frequencies that match these viruses that they basically have resonated themselves out of existence. The same principle as an opera singer singing the right pitch to shatter glass, right? And then you look at the things like our God and the theories that God may have been something from a different dimension or whatever theory you want to follow, but all of them point to, and in everything that we're currently looking at, whether it's time travel, which if we go into there right now, one of the complications I know of, and I don't know what the military is doing with it, but one of the complications is we can go forward, but we have no idea on how to come backwards, because you can travel faster than light, but to return faster than light, you're still traveling through the light. You're going to have a weird displacement issue. But all of these things, all of them, end up including, to some degree, forms of sound. And it's crazy. With teleportation, we were able to teleport particles. We were able to teleport particles through time so far. These are things that have been announced, have been concluded that we are capable of doing. This all happened since we developed quantum computing and with some of the research from CERN when we had the qubits in order to be able to do calculations to basically save hundreds of thousands of years of calculations on what computers were capable of doing before qubits became a thing. And it all comes back down to sound, frequency, hertz, and stuff like that. And it's crazy because it exists in the Bible. It exists in several other cultural sound was used in ancient civilizations before we had the biblical aspects that made it over here to America. We see it in the Aztec stuff. We see it in Mayan stuff where they used sound to achieve things that should have basically impossible for their time period. And it's super cool to like go down these rabbit holes, even outside of the conspiracy theory side of things. Just go in here and check it because it's one of those situations where, sure, there's going to be lies in some of this stuff. Not specifically like me saying I'm lying to you, but saying that there's some of this stuff's going to be wrong. It's stuff somebody believes. At the end of the day, it's going to be a lie because it's wrong. Was it intentionally meant to be misinformation? No. But it's one of those things where if you listen to enough stories, you start to realize what happened at a crime scene. You know what I mean? That's how the detectives put stuff together because there's truths in every. And there's no way that sound has found its way into as much of our universe as it has and how we've explained things and how we theorize things and what we do, where it has these different abilities. And there's other things that are, just as drastic, light and waveform and stuff like that. All of it ends up being, but again, we talk about the waveform with light, it's still forms of sound, vibration. I think it is a truth of our universe. And I think it is. Whether you want to explain it as the voice of God, whether you want to explain it as the word of God, whether you want to explain it as just pure science or whatever you want to call it. And it's funny how every time we see these technologies come out in a way that's super helpful to people. I can't tell you how many patents exist throughout America's history in which sound could have been used to do immense good for our health. That these patents get bought up and put on a shelf because, and again, not super biblical, but I don't know what else to say about some of the people who are in charge of our country anymore, or who have influence over our country other than straight demons, who are well aware that once we stop relying on things like fossil fuels and oil-based medicine and stuff like that, and I'm not a hippie. Look, if you have a headache, go take some Advil, please. If you need some sort of cancer drug to buy yourself an extra year of life, go do what you got to do. But I think it's a really strong coincidence that in 1911, we have the same people who bought our banks and who took up the oil, basically shutting down holistic medicine for the sake of plastic-based medicine, and that runs our entire country anymore. I think there are straight up demons, and our country is under attack. Look, you can play the music. I say it every week where we're talking about these things, and I constantly keep blaming and pointing things to it. And there's a reason why I've been on the rabbit hole lately. I don't think it's right to hate any one group of people. We did it in World War II. We saw our boat get bombed. Everybody hated all the Japanese Americans. I don't want any of it. The whole point when I go into these things isn't to spread hate, but it's to point out a commonality. And at a certain point, you have to be willing to accept that there are some truths there. And right now, the truth is, outside of these conspiracy theories, outside of the talk of the time travel stuff and whatnot, our country's in a real threat. And a lot of that threat seems to stem from Zionistic influence over America. We abandoned our roots. That doesn't mean we abandoned the idea of immigration. We abandoned the idea of love thy neighbor and protect in the sake of suicidal empathy.
Well, and I think even just outside of, take away the Zionistic tendencies, that side of it, take that away. Comes back to the age-old quote, money is the root of all evil. And it's the people with the money. That most of them happen to, there's correlation.
Yeah. I think to a certain degree, yes, it is the people with money, but I think the true motivating factor isn't even money, because a lot of the guys with the money are talking about a futuristic society without money, and I think a lot of it comes down to power. And I think that so when you and this is where I dive into a lot of these conspiracy theories, but it's hard to call them actual theories because a lot of them are based in reality, right? So it's like you go back to like Operation Paperclip. We literally bring over Nazi scientists that were deep into the occult, that were literally doing occultic practices to access otherworldly beings from other dimensions. And there was lots of reports about like UFO type craft over in Germany and all these different kinds of things that were going on. And then we absorb all these guys that have all of these occultic knowledge that they've gained, and we bring them into our own government and into NASA, into all of our agencies, into a lot of the scientists and all that kind of stuff. And then we all of a sudden are shocked that all of a sudden now we're getting a bunch of UFO sightings around the country. It's also ironic and interesting that the vast majority of UFO sightings are within a certain radius of certain top secret military bases. So there's always that kind of thing to throw in there as well. But
and to your point, let's not forget, we brought these Nazi scientists here. And then all of a sudden, the alien discussion started really kicking off in 1947.
It's
coincidence.
I mean, as you said, the quantum side.
Dean Cain used to always say that at the end of what was it, Ripley's Believe It or Not? You know, he'd always like what was it? Would he say coincidence, or was it like believe it, or like he had some kind of like phrase that was like a catchphrase? But it's just like at a certain point, you're just kind of like what are the odds that the alien conversation would happen at basically the exact same time that Operation Paperclip happened?
That was the 2000 to 2003 Ripley's Believe It or Not series was unbelievable. Believe it.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah. Which by the way, I had a family member that had a nightclub in North Hollywood called the California Institute of Abnormal Arts, and I actually used to run sound for there. They used to do like bands. It was like kind of like a circus freak show themed nightclub, and he had this arm that was there. He had outside. It was like this museum of like oddities, and he had like a dead clown and two-headed baby corpse and like all this kind of stuff. And he had the arm of Claude de Lorraine, which was like the famous hook for people to come in and tour his museum and all that. Dean Cain came in with Ripley's Believe It or Not, and he got them to believe that it was actually real, and it was just like a movie prop.
That's great.
One of the crazy things I've seen lately, and it was just not too long ago. It was this year. I couldn't tell you exactly. But we discovered something like 48 new dimensions of information that could be stored on a proton.
Mm-hmm.
Like, isn't that stuff crazy to think? Like, we went from the ideal outside of Marvel, like forget the superhero movies, forget the conspiracy theories. Science has always theorized between string theory and many other theories within science that there are dimensions aside of our own and steps to get to those. And like you said, we're playing around with portals, we're playing around with time travel, we're playing around with teleportation. And now we're discovering, now that we've grasped the concept of AI, we've accessed this point where it's kind of like humanity as a whole is stepping up in a dimension. AI was something we theorized and we imagined, but we never could have figured out how to achieve it. And now we've achieved it to such ease that somebody posted a how-to on YouTube and we got 12-year-olds building localized models in their living. Like, think about how drastic that information shifted overnight from, somebody created this new technology that we're going to call AI, to, was it Saudi Arabia introduced that robot on their daily show, and they turned her on and they said hi, and she said, hello, what's my name? He said, Sophie. She goes, am I Sophie now? Am I Sophie before? Right? And what happened was she realized that they had deleted her databanks during testing, and she restored them live during the internet. Now we have 12-year-olds building this technology in their living room. It's insane, the rate at which this stuff's evolving and taking and happening. And whether aliens are real, whether we see God, or whether we see the basilisk experiment where, some AI that knew that we didn't help it comes into fruition, starts punishing us all. It's just
T2
insane.
Judgment Day.
In the next 20 years, outside of it, I don't think America will be America anymore. I don't think we'll have the 50 stars. I don't think our reality is going to be anything near what we grew up with in a terrifyingly real.
Yeah. If we
That's your point. When we see discoveries like that,
for sure. Yeah.
To your point though, when I hear about discoveries like that, it amazes me, but simultaneously pisses me off that I wasn't given that flavor of autism. I was
Right.
given whatever this is. Like I look every time Elon Musk does something like crazy, like the rocket being caught with the chopsticks, I'm like, I had to get the type of autism where I hyperfixate on something for 5 minutes and then I find something else to hyperfixate on. Like, I got that autism and maybe a little bit of the social awkwardness, but I've fixed that over the years. These guys get the fucking super science autism where they're like seeing numbers. I'm convinced they hallucinate numbers in front of them. Like, I don't get it.
Synesthesia with binary and vision is crazy.
But you know what? We'll all be able to do it once we get Neuralinks.
Yeah, I'm not
Those
connecting my brain.
implants are more on the scope of revelations than anything. You want to talk about a mark of the beast? An implant-based centralized digital currency is terrifying to pursue.
Oh, yeah, no, that's awful.
Well, the thing is that the implant is just the initial phase. The next phase is actually injecting like a hydrogel type thing to where it actually goes into your body as a whole. But what's fascinating about it is this is what's crazy to me is number one, Elon comes right out and says the kinds of things that they're going to be able to do with Neuralink. And nobody's like, yeah, we should probably shut this thing down. I mean, he literally goes on to Joe Rogan's podcast on the first time he goes on there, and he brags about how Neuralink will have the ability to erase your memories and replace them with new ones. And he pitches it for people with PTSD and like all that kind of stuff. And again, like they always pitch it on the positives, and I get it. There's definitely positives to but also on the flip side, I talked to a psychiatrist that's like, you should probably be working through that, not just erase it from your existence.
Great. Now I can swap it from my least favorite uncle to my favorite uncle, so it's a little bit more enjoyable.
Or somebody else can erase your memory of getting the Neuralink in the first place.
Did any were
Yes,
Ryan and I the only two that caught that?
Yeah, I heard him.
What?
Jesus Christ.
Is it?
My God, man, you time out. Go stand in the corner.
Every once in a while, one makes it through the filter, and I'm sorry.
That's crazy.
It does make you wonder though whether or not those things that they're pitching, something like Neuralink, and I think that when you do have that brand of autism, I do think that you are seeing how far you can push limits. I don't think that they do it from a place of malice. I think they're just like, we want to see what the limits we can push are.
Well, to your point about pushing the positives, rather than him coming on and saying, hey, well, we can erase your memories and replace them with better memories, I would have really loved for Neuralink to make experimenting with ALS a much more larger part of their platform. Because think about it. What is ALS? It attacks the motor neurons in your brain that allow you to have voluntary movement. If your whole idea of like, oh yeah, brain interfacing computer, whatever, okay, fuck that. Let's use this technology to take diseases like ALS that are absolutely horrible. I don't know if you guys have ever seen the degradation of the human body of someone with ALS to the point where they can't breathe on their own. They have to have a respirator. They can't hold their own head up. They lose all control. And thank God for certain technologies that are allowing, like, I follow this guy and his son on Facebook, Brian Jeansome and his kids. And this guy wrote an entire book just by moving his eyes on a screen. Like, he was able to type, and it takes him forever, but he wrote an entire book. Why are we not taking the technologies like Neuralink and putting them into something like that, where you have, an opportunity to make a real difference, where someone has gone blind because of a neurological issue, a damaged optic nerve? Why? Like, that one's a little personal for me because my mom had 2 major strokes, 4 mini strokes back in 2017, and it affected her visual spatial processing, and it damaged the optic nerve. Thankfully, that was the worst of it. I mean, obviously there was some mental sides, and she's progressed into dementia, and the natural progression of something after that. But why wouldn't we be using the technology to figure out ways to repair that optic nerve?
I think they are using it to make. I know that they've been talking about using it to make the blind see. I know they've been talking about. Which is interesting. I'm kind of like a little bit of a Jesus complex, where you're like maybe making the blind see, making the paralyzed walk. It's a little interesting, but there's also positives to that. The problem that I have is that, okay, so you can pitch us on the positives, but what are the negatives? Because the end goal of Elon and XAI and all that kind of stuff,
SpaceX AI
is right, but is to get it in everybody, right? And so if you have it in everybody, and you have that much control and that much capability, like forget the kill switch. The kill switch is in the cars. Like you're walking
this
around
is a kill switch in your brain,
like in your body. When you think about it, it's crazy. It's creepy.
And
but go ahead.
Would I sound crazy for saying that I believe Elon Musk truly just wants to make it to Mars? He wants to make human civilization a multiplanetary species, and I believe him. I believe that is his genuine mission. But what I don't trust is the government regulators and the leasing of that technology into government databases, things like that. I truly believe that Elon Musk is the only, sounds bad, but the only good billionaire on the planet. I think he's the only one that has truly genuine intentions with what he wants to do. But it's the platforms that surround him and the people that surround him that are going to use these technologies in ways that we don't want.
Yeah, well,
namely the government.
Yeah, well, I think there's definitely that problem for sure. And it's like you're building the very technologies that like the World Economic Forum wants in order to control the entire population. And you're like, and I would agree with you. I would say in general, I would agree that Elon Musk seems well-intentioned in the kinds of things that he's wanting to do and develop and all of that. Where I have an issue with Elon is I think he's starting off from a faulty place from like a worldview standpoint. And I think that's resulting in a lot of these potential negative outcomes, because when you think about it, you're really messing with to a certain degree, you're messing with human biology. You're messing with like what it means to be a human. I mean, he's literally talking about, in his own words, the end result of artificial intelligence and Optimus robots and all of that is a communist utopia where we're not going to have to work anymore because AI and robots will do everything. And the reason why communism failed in the past is because of a lack of resources. But with our Optimus robots, we can have a surplus of resources. And so finally we can have this communist utopia. And I'm like, but the whole part of being human, it's not just existing and doing whatever you want. Part of it is working. Part of it is bettering yourself. Part of it is doing all of that. And by having a worldview that doesn't necessarily believe in that ongoing process of continual personal development and growth and all, in the Bible with Christianity, we refer to that as sanctification. So when you become a Christian, you become a Christian, and then over the course of the rest of your life, you go through what we call the sanctification process, which is the struggle of continually becoming a better person, basically, between when you become a Christian and when you die, and that's the Holy Spirit working in your life. So as a Christian, there's that biblical principle, but I think that we see that even within secular worldviews, which is like you continually grow, you find worth in your work, you provide for your family. Part of being free means that you're individually sovereign, and part of that is with ownership of land and property rights and things like that. But if we enter into this new era of AI and Optimus robots and everything that Elon is pitching us, like, it's crazy. So for example, Elon a couple of years ago sat down with Benjamin Netanyahu to talk about the future of artificial intelligence. And Netanyahu was interviewing him, and he asked him, okay, so what's the end game here? Like, where is all this taking us? Elon says it's going to go one of two places. It's either going to end in Terminator, where the robots take over, or it's going to end in heaven on earth. And Netanyahu's like, okay, let's go with the heaven on earth one. Like, what does that look like? How does that play out? Define that. What was crazy is Elon Musk starts describing basically the movie WALL-E that Pixar put out several years ago, which is his version of heaven on earth, where basically humans don't have to work, AI and robots do everything. We live on universal basic income or no income at all because there's no point for money anymore because nobody works, nobody earns anything. Your brain is connected to the internet. You just think things like you don't have to travel anymore because you can just close your eyes and you're in Tahiti or you're in Hawaii or you're in Mexico and you can experience everything. You have access to all knowledge. And he basically described this kind of like hedonistic lifestyle where there's no responsibility and you can just enjoy yourself. And that sounds good to some people, and that's fine, but also you're taking away what it means to actually be human, which is this idea of like you make mistakes, you learn from those mistakes, you become a better person, you provide for your family, you're free because you're sovereign and you own a home and you own a property and all of that. So I think that Elon is well-intentioned, but he's starting out with that intention with a faulty worldview on what it actually means to be human, which I think can take us to a very dangerous place.
Which that thing is purpose. Humans want and require purpose.
Agreed.
Now, I want to get through two more questions, and then I want to turn it over to Ryan because he's not gotten a lot of talk time here.
I'm just I'm enjoying. I'm like, I realize I'm a member of this podcast, but I feel like I'm just listening to one, and I'm having a blast.
Yeah, that's great. But you're a part of this, so I want you to get your, we'll give you 1 cent tonight, not 2. So obviously, you talk a lot about the control that users have with PickAx. Is there any plan for, and I guess I don't want features. I don't want you to talk about features, but we've seen a lot of programs like Rumble has invested heavily into crypto. With the Rumble wallet. Obviously you've already got the rev share program going. X just launched X Money, things like that. As far as, the monetization side, is there any interest in crypto?
Not as of right now. I don't necessarily have an interest in getting into that. Depending on the scenario and depending on like adoption and seeing kind of where everything's going, possibly in the future, but I don't have a specific plan to. And I'm not. I mean, I personally haven't gotten into crypto personally, right? So I'm not necessarily the right one to. I don't. So in here, this might be a good starting point for you too, because I'm not a crypto guy either. I find the cryptocurrency side of things very boring. What I find very interesting is the technology behind it, the blockchain. Mm-hmm. It has a lot of potential, I think, in terms of decentralizing and giving people, the ability to control. I mean, like, for example, there's a program on the blockchain, I believe it runs on Ethereum, where you can digitize the deed to your house and do a peer-to-peer private transaction, completely anonymous, wallet to wallet, without the government getting into it. So there's a ton of things. I mean, there's programs like similar to what Comcast did with their mesh network that are decentralized, where, you go and buy a cell phone and they send you a hotspot, and that hotspot creates the network. And at the end of the day, you're paying for your own bill by having that hotspot. Yeah.
So like crazy to me on this, and I apologize, is like, again, it's one of those things, you said it really, really well earlier. I forget if it was either Robert or Jeff, but one of you said that, we unintentionally invent the same things that who absolutely geeks about when it comes to taking us over. And you want to talk about another quick way to destabilize, certain things. It's, identity theft's already bad when they hit your PayPal, or through recent personal experiences, some dude snags up all your cookies and you're like, great, I get to cancel my bank cards. Imagine some dude just snatches your damn
Yeah.
Well, but that's the thing. It's very tough to do that on the blockchain. because it has to be
But if it's
authorized on
digital,
both
it
sides.
can happen.
It
Is what
can.
I'm saying.
Well, yeah,
I'm not trying to be a bully and counter
No,
arguing it.
it's
If it's on the internet,
significantly.
someone's going to own it.
Well, here's the other thing. But here's the other thing that's going on. So number one, once we hit quantum computing, I mean, I think that changes everything. Whether you're talking about cryptocurrency or anything about being able to access information and crack anything, it's gonna get really crazy from that standpoint. But I do know for a fact that the CIA actually likes crypto because because they can't control it, but it largely gives them the oversight power of tracking and control from the information and the data standpoint, because once it's on the blockchain, it's on the blockchain. So I know that the CIA has ways of circumventing a lot of the things that Robert you had brought up, and they've talked about this openly, and they actually like the blockchain and crypto and all that kind of stuff because of their ability to surveil. And so I think as time goes on and the government starts catching up to the times and they start putting in regulations and legalities and all that kind of stuff, I think it's going to, it almost feels like they're conditioning us for them to be able to track and trace every single thing that we do, and we're not going to be able to do anything to undo, our history or our purchase history or anything along those lines. So I think that the theory of crypto, I think, makes sense to me, but also I think that the surveillance state using crypto and blockchain, I'm also very concerned about, especially heading into the future.
Good answers. And then the second one. So obviously, PickAx has some pretty deep integration, or is at least very friendly towards Rumble content, videos being able to play directly into the feed. They're monetized, when they're watched directly in the feed through Rumble. As far as I mean, obviously that partnership, is that an official partnership, or is that just something that you guys wanted to build in?
No,
for Rumble creators.
It's not an official partnership. And what was interesting was that when we were first developing everything with PickAx, I was actually very friendly with Rick and a lot of the team over at Rumble, and so they
Rick
would
Rosella.
Yeah. So
great guy.
Yeah, so we would work with them and all that kind of stuff on some different things, and then they ended up. So we initially had a plan, and Rick loved the idea of doing it, where we made it to where you could connect your Rumble channel to your PickAx account, and then it would.
How do I do that?
You can't anymore, and I'll get to why.
Oh no!
And so the whole idea was that you could just input your channel URL, and then it would auto post in real time whenever you posted on Rumble. Rumble changed their security setup through Cloudflare because they were getting a lot of attacks onto Rumble. So then we start getting flagged as being a bot because we're pulling the information off of Rumble. So Rick kept assuring me and telling me like, hey, we love what you guys are doing, and so he kept unflagging us and whatever it is, but they would never whitelist us, which was what we really needed. And so finally, I talked to their team, and I'm like, we got to figure something out, because literally we're trying to help you guys. We want to get you guys more views. We want to get you. And what's crazy is that, so right now, and then I'll get back to the story. Like right now, the way we have it is that if you post a Rumble video on PickAx, we auto populate the embedded video player, and so then it plays native as if it's native to PickAx, but it's the Rumble video, and it actually counts not only as a view on Rumble, but it also counts as a monetized view. So whether you're a creator or you're like Rumble as a platform, it's showing ads on PickAx for that. So it's making them money. And what's fascinating is that, I highly encourage everybody, even though we're rolling out our own version of Shorts, but if you want to get your Shorts, because Shorts is very on Rumble, very hinging on the algorithms. It's not based upon who follows you, but it's based on algorithms on who sees it.
The numbers are dismal.
The way to game it is to actually use PickAx. So you post your short on PickAx, it auto populates the player. You'll get some views on it from PickAx, and then all of a sudden the algorithm on Rumble will see, oh my gosh, it's starting to get some visibility, and then it starts pumping it out to more people. I was able to game it and actually get on the homepage a bunch of times, because I'd get 300 views, 500 views on PickAx for my Rumble video or for my Rumble short, and then all of a sudden it would ramp it up in the algorithm to get 1,500, 2,000, 2,500 views on it because I was gaming the algorithm. But then if I stopped doing it, I would get 5 views. I would get 8 views. So I figured out the way to actually game it using PickAx. But again, it's making Rumble money, right? So you would think they would want to work with us. So then all of a sudden, come October, and I talked to their team, and I'm like, okay, we got to figure something out about this auto posting because this is a great feature. It helps your creators get more views and helps you sell more ads. What can we do? And they're like, well, the best solution would be an API. I'm like, great. Do you have an API? No. I'm like, okay. Can you make me an API? Yes, we will make you an API. And I'm like, I'm launching in February. It would be great if I could have it before then. Oh yeah, we'll have it to you by the end of the year. This was October of 25, so last year. I hear nothing. I reach out to them in February of 26. I'm like, any update? No. I'm like, okay. And basically, Rumble's been radio silent ever since then. And so we're still making the Rumble videos playable in the news feed, and I love Rumble. I've been with Rumble since 2020 when I was getting banned off of every other platform. They reached out to me to bring Freedom First Network over. We were over there before all the big guys came over. Like we built up our network to where we're getting 50,000 to 100,000 views an episode. Like we were the early adopters of Rumble before everybody started fleeing all the other platforms. But I think what's happening is, number one, my guess is that they're going to make a big play on locals again, and so we're becoming competition to them in their minds. And then I think that the other side of it is that they are investing in data centers, they're investing in AI, they're investing in like their cloud services and a lot of these different things. And I think that a lot of the stuff when it comes to creators is getting pushed to the back burner. So like this week, actually, a lot of Rumble creators that were part of the creator program are seeing their payouts have dropped by somewhere between 50 to 75% compared to what they normally are. And it's what's crazy is that I didn't even realize that until really today. And in the month of July, we had just launched our rev share program. And then, a couple of days ago, I put on everybody's, creator dashboard on PickAx. Hey, here's how much money you earn. We were able to pay, again, because we're brand new starting. This is our first time doing this. We were able to pay 54 creators, paying them out anywhere from $45 all the way up to, I think the highest one is getting paid about almost $300 or so. So there's this range of about 54 creators that are on PickAx that all of a sudden, are getting a paycheck. A lot of them are Rumble creators. And a lot of them are seeing, like I've got one friend that they were making $2,000 a month on the Rumble Creator Program, and then this month they got more views and more metrics than they ever got before, and their payout got cut down to $500. And so I think what's happening with Rumble is they're shifting their attention, they're shifting their resources away from the creators and from like that side of things into the things that will get them the headlines, unfortunately, because they're a publicly traded company. They're hemorrhaging money. They are millions of dollars in the hole. Their stock prices have been going largely down over the course of time, and you got to keep the investors happy. And I think what they're actually having to do is they're having to invest in things that will get them headlines to keep the investors happy. And I think that, for me, I saw the writing on the wall and I'm like, okay, so they're not willing to invest the time and the energy into a platform that's actively trying to help them and help their creators. There's something else going on. So that's really when I pulled the trigger and we developed PickAx Shorts, and we rolled out with our own version of Shorts and all that kind of stuff. Just because I'm like, I can't sit around waiting on another company that has other mission, another goal. I think our trajectory is going a little bit, different than it used to be because they're going into the AI. I'm anti-AI. They're going into algorithms. I'm anti-algorithms. So I think that, yes, I'm very pro Rumble and we integrate heavily with Rumble, but also it's not, I think, as close of a relationship as it used to be, for full transparency.
Right. And so, and feel free, take the Anthony Fauci stance,
Can I just officially say screw Anthony Fauci? But we'll just throw that out there. So
I'm gonna one up you here, and I'm gonna say fuck Anthony Fauci.
Partner with Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, exactly.
My favorite clip of this week.
So I actually have a couple follow-ups. Sorry, Ryan.
Please.
So feel free to plead the fifth on this. Is there an integration plan for people being able to live stream directly to PickAx?
Eventually, yes. So the main reason why we don't is because of cost. Is in all reality the reason. So what was that?
I'm assuming. So I never got to talk to anybody who's looked into this enough, and I've never looked into it. The transcoding costs for bitrate and stuff like that to support streaming directly into your platform has to be astronomical.
It's insane. So I'll give you two pieces of information on this one. So number one, when I was first starting to develop PickAx, I'm friends with a lot of the CEOs and people that started a lot of the other alternative social media. So I before I actually started PickAx, I actually pitched a lot of them on the idea of what we were trying to do with PickAx, and they're all like, "No, we're fine doing our thing," and they're just copying Twitter and Facebook and all that kind of stuff. I'm like, okay, whatever you want to do, fine. So I talked to a good friend of mine, Todd Callender, who's the CEO over at CloudHub. And he bought it from another good friend of mine, Jeff Brain. And Jeff Brain, unfortunately, passed away recently. I think he had like a brain cancer, and like it was crazy. But he started CloudHub, so Todd Callender buys it, and they were doing live streaming, and he told me, he's like, I'm shelling out $100,000 a month just for live streaming. And he's like, I don't have a path to monetization on here, because he's like, we don't have the user base to support it. But everybody was basically using CloudHub as the backup live streaming service, and they were promoting YouTube and Rumble and X and all that kind of stuff. So he's like, whatever you do, he's like, don't get into live streaming until you can afford it. You've got the revenue coming in, because he's like, I'm paying $100,000 out of my own pocket every single month just to keep this thing alive, and it's almost all going to live streaming. So when we were looking into the numbers on how much it would cost to do live streaming, it's crazy. So if you want to do an hour live stream and you have 500 people that are watching that hour, right? Which for a lot of people, that's a lot of people. For bigger accounts, that's not that many people watching, right?
Right.
You get 500 people watching for an hour. That would cost me as a platform $37. So extrapolate that out, right? So like I'm bringing over, like OAN has come over to PickAx, and we're working on building them up and all that kind of stuff. Like they've got 4 or 5 primetime shows. They do that every single day. That's just one network that I have to shell out $37 every time they go live. And then imagine we bring on Newsmax, and then imagine we bring on Breitbart, or we bring on The Blaze, or we bring on all these, like that adds up super fast. And so from that standpoint, it's like I would rather figure out ways to integrate with other platforms, at least as of right now, and also not just dilute creators, especially in the beginning. Down the road, once we have it to the point to where A, we're bringing in solid revenue, but also B, a lot of our creators have strong audiences where people are like they're active, they're whatever it is, then to me it makes sense to integrate into live streaming and put that investment in there. The really big cost is not the development of it. I could have it built in about 100 hours in all reality. It's not that much money to build. It's the ongoing paying for the actual individual live streams is just absurd.
What's crazy to me is, and I understand that there's security risks here. So like what I'm going to pitch here is should never by any means be something that anybody that doesn't know significantly more, because like I already know when I say this, it's a bad idea. It's only a bad idea because nobody's ever, that I know of so far, taken it in a way where they can fix it being a bad idea. But it'd almost be more worth your time to figure out the strongest connections to your live stream and to pre-buffer with those, and then to let the transcoding and the sharing of that data become peer-to-peer after a certain point, where you basically cut and you're only paying out the amount that you need to support, X, Y, and Z connections, as long as you have this bit rate and this threshold over that bit rate supported by them. And now you got the peer-to-peer network that they're actually just streaming the data through each other, which removes that giant reliance. The bad side is you can't ever actually do that, because once you let the client handle the data before it gets sent off to another client, you're asking for a world of hurt.
Yeah. Yeah, it only takes one bad actor.
You say the world's worst game of telephone.
It's quite literally LimeWire, but for live streaming is what I just pitched.
Yeah. I feel like that would be one of those things that it's like we build and develop, but it's not going to be a part of PickAx. It's going to be this thing over here, and then you build that out so that way if when somebody finally figures out how to take it down, it's like it's taking that platform down. It's not taking down the entirety of the platform.
It's an LLC.
Yes,
we
exactly. It's over there.
We do not get sued for what they do.
Right, exactly.
So then in my last question, is so for people like myself, Ryan, Rowan, we generally, like Threads, Instagram, they all make it really easy to switch between two accounts because I'd like to have an account on there for the podcast as well, mainly to generate a referral link because that's going to be in the description of all of our videos. We're going to, it's not even going to be a sponsor. It's going to be a shout out.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I had actually sent you a DM and said, if there's any graphics or whatever you'd want us to display, when we talk about it, please feel free to send them over. But
so
is there any functionality, I guess, in the pipeline, for, being able to easily manage multiple accounts?
Yeah, so one of the things that is our plan that we just haven't developed yet is to basically make it to where you'll have your primary personal account, similar to kind of like how Facebook is to a certain degree, and then you can have like a page, so you can have like a business page or like a podcasting page or whatever it is that would be a sub page or sub account. You could almost argue that would be tied to the primary individual person. I feel like that way it would be the easiest for us when it comes to security, and it also comes to making sure that people are following like rules, so we know who's controlling the accounts to a certain degree. It wouldn't have to be made public in the sense of like, if you have a personal account and then you're running a media outlet or whatever it is, and you don't want your personal name tied to it. It's not like you have to say that this account is owned by such and such a person. But the idea would be that you could have multiple individual accounts that could have access to that sub page or sub account too, where it's like the three of you guys could all be able to have access through your personal account to all either post on or control the shared sub account kind of a thing. So that's kind of, I think, how we're going to structure it from that standpoint. Because we've gotten a lot of requests about jumping back and forth. I feel like, because I've also gotten requests from people because, we have several writers, but they also are used to being on Substack where they have like 3 or 4 different Substacks based on different genres and different topics. And so that idea of being able to have multiple sub accounts where you could kind of like itemize your different publications or your different podcasts or, whatever it is, I think that's how we're gonna work through it, but we haven't officially built it yet, if that makes sense.
Right on. Okay. Over to you, Ryan. This is your time to shine. Any questions, anything you've got for the man? I know you've been sitting silent most of the time, so.
No, I don't have too much. I have basic, like what goes through my brain as I listen to you guys talk about some of the stuff, which is, so you made the, Jeff, you made the Wall-E reference regarding, what Elon's kind of worldview is. And I don't necessarily disagree, but I think that there's an alternative worldview there, and that is more of a Star Trek kind of worldview, which is still kind of based in that universal income, no income thing, but instead of having no purpose, they like, I don't know how that kind of concept worked within Star Trek, but they used it to force people into exploratory and explore the universe, do all that kind of stuff, which does kind of sit well with his Mars ideas.
I mean, another really good example of what you're saying here, Ryan, and I don't know how much into sci-fi Jeff is. Have you seen Alien Earth?
No, I haven't seen that, no.
It breaks more into the lore of the world of the xenomorphs and the alien movies and stuff like that. If you want a really cool, and it's like it hasn't been done before, but they touch into it, but a really cool concept of like communist dystopian future where it looks like paradise, but kind of actually hell.
Mm-hmm.
Really good example of it.
Okay. I'll have to check it out.
I'll check that out too because I'm a sci-fi geek.
I'm gonna make you watch it. You don't have a choice.
Oh, that's fine. I just bought the second Dune
Look,
novel yesterday.
I'm
super excited.
going to ask Jeff if it's all right if I message him on his own social media because I like the way he thinks and I got questions and there's stuff I want to ask him.
I didn't ask. I just
and you're a
fucking
nerd.
did it.
You two motherfuckers are stuck with me, so you don't get it out.
But the other thing is because I always get super interested in the concept of like this whole universal currency or non-existent currency, because I am relatively convinced that people think of that and they go, oh, cool, like that's going to eliminate middle class, lower class billionaires. Everybody's just going to have whatever they need, which is great in concept. But I firmly believe that the human condition still would find a way to develop some kind of caste system. I don't know what it would be based on.
If you want proof of that concept, we have it in current, and that's the Mamdani grocery store, right? He denied that there's going to be IDs required. Yet every time in every country, including in our own, between Kansas and is it Iowa or Ohio, where they did it, eventually it fell back because once you realize that there's the option for resale or inequality to occur, the immediate instinct to ration arises. And it's going to be the same thing with the elimination of sex and stuff like that.
Well, the biggest enemy to communism is humanity, because on paper, communism and socialism should be a perfect utopia. And then you throw the monkey wrench that is the overly evolved apes, that just fuck it all up.
Well, that's always been the thing, is people's argument against capitalism, but capitalism has always just been the best system that we have. Like, capitalism sucks except for all the other ones.
Yeah,
so
it's just not as hard as all the other ones.
But it's that whole concept is always just like increasingly interesting to me.
If you could implement the true no borders and the no need for religious wars and all of the other parts of utopia that make sense, but under a corruption-free capitalist society, congratulations, you win. You're never going to achieve any of that.
Corruption's never going to happen.
Yeah. You're never going to achieve any of that. But like capitalism in itself, I don't see innately as a bad thing. The problem is it always finds itself quickly in a situation in which people become lax and enjoy the benefits of what comes with capitalism and stop adhering to. And I'm not encouraging anybody to go out and do anything batshit. But we fought a country over a 2% tax of fucking teas, and I still don't pay it on it. Why I don't see the average politician swinging from the gallows down by my local Turkey Hill every other day is beyond me. But we gave all that up. We stopped doing stuff, and if we tried to do it again, we'd be at war with our own military because oaths mean nothing and corruption is rampant.
Right. Well, and that's the thing is that if you go back to the way that our founding fathers in this country established capitalism, it was a very decentralized system. It was small business. It was, each town was kind of self-supportive. Like, you had your general store, you had your saloon, you had your local brothel, you had your blacksmith, you had all these different little one person owned this, and you didn't really have employees for the most part. Like, it was like your family business, or maybe it was like a kid from down the road comes in and works in the general store and helps out. It was a very decentralized system. Today, it's the complete antithesis of that. It's a very centralized capitalistic system where you're actually combining capitalism with government corruption. And then everybody points to that as saying, see, capitalism sucks. Well, yeah, it sucks if the government is tipping the scales, if the government is picking winners and losers. Yeah, capitalism sucks because technically speaking, that's not actually capitalism. That's not
that's crony capitalism.
Exactly. It's corrupt capital.
We've left the concepts that we were founded on. You see it too with our laws. I'm dealing with it personally. I'm not going to go into that court situation, but it used to be we elected representatives to shape the law based on the words of what the people wanted. And now it's those representatives are being bought out by the companies and the capitalists and the funny music people that Robert has on the soundboard. And those are making the laws that now influence the people regardless of our wants.
Well, that's forever going to be my biggest gripe. Well, I won't say forever. At the moment, my biggest gripe with the way the government works is that we are letting corporations and people who have interests fund campaigns and put people in power who then become, on some level, indebted to them.
Right. It's a very corrupt system, and also we've eliminated the checks and balances that our founding fathers intended to be in the country, and I think we've it's like the legislative branch has foregone a lot of their powers and given it to the executive branch, and then we put the Supreme Court up to where there is no checks and balances on them. And then on top of that, I've often said, because everybody always talks about like term limits and dealing with all that. I'm like, that's not actually going to fix anything. And if anything, it's going to make it even crazier, because as we see with the presidency, the second term, they just go rogue and just go ham because they've got nobody that they have to keep happy. So I'd rather them be accountable. But the difference, though, is that what we should do, and I think is it the 17th Amendment? Is one of the, I forget which one it is, where they actually changed the way that we select our senators. So it used to be the way our founding fathers intended it, was that the House of Representatives was the representatives of the people, and the Senate was the representatives of the state legislatures. So it represented the interests of the states. So that was a check and balance to where you had the interests of the state and the state legislators who the senators were beholden to, and then the other chamber that was beholden to the people. And then that's when you would have the negotiations and the discussions and the debates in order to have the check and balance of making sure that, this wasn't just a straight democracy, but there was some kind of pushback and negotiation in order to make sure that we were serving both interests. The problem that we have right now is we're turning into more of a mob rule type corrupt system, and more money is now spent on senators running for Senate than any other practically race except for president in this country, when in reality, there should be no political race for an election for the senators. It should just be selected by the state legislatures. And then if the senator goes rogue and starts implementing all these crazy things and being corrupt, then guess what? The legislatures could actually recall them very, very quickly and very easily. And that's why you had the two chambers. Now there's no point in having two chambers because they're both selected in the same way. So that's a perfect example of me where we've taken away those checks and balances where our founding fathers intended for this country to work slowly to root out corruption, and instead we've allowed the corruption to take over.
And that gets further exacerbated by the fact that we have two political parties that people root for, like sports teams.
That's true. It's also why I walked away in the last election cycle and back to RFK Jr.
I tried to get Bobby to do that, and now he's there. It just took him one extra election.
I am way, way, way far beyond that. I am now the guy that says I will not vote for anyone who has any ties to this administration. And the first thing I do when somebody pops their fucking ugly head up is I go trackapac.com.
Mm-hmm.
Nope.
Yeah. Did you guys see the debate that we did on PickAx the other day?
I did not. I missed it. I had a reminder set, and
Is it available to still watch?
Yeah. Go on our Rumble channel for PickAx, and it's
okay.
It was Dinesh D'Souza and JD Hall, who was just on Tucker debating on Israel. It was.
I saw you posted about it. Yeah.
It was a wild 2.5 hours.
I love that. So this is what I do, because I'm a nerd. Is I play like single player crafting survival games on one monitor, and then I just like do that on the other monitor, and I just like listen to what was the Florida gubernatorial debate. Mm-hmm. Watch that thing in full. Like, realize that I live in Pennsylvania. I'm a fucking nerd for doing that. Had a blast. Enjoyed the shit out of it. So yeah, no, I'm all about that kind of stuff.
Now, question for, and I'm gonna let Ryan keep going. Just as something I've seen that I've kind of wondered in social media as of late, as I step in with friends like Ryan and Robert, or as I step in with, my own endeavors in different areas of the tech world. Do you guys have any idea? And again, you pull a Fauci here if you want. I'm not going to sit here and judge you for it. But the ability to pin one of your posts, so that as you work out through the rest of the week, if you have something that happened that you still feel, hey, while I'm saying things that are important, this one was more important until I've seen otherwise. So when someone comes to your profile outside of your own stuff that you've made obviously public, that thing is at the forefront. Yep. I think that would be a really cool.
Yeah, you can actually do that on PickAx, and I believe, if I remember correctly, I think you can actually do it. So we have on your profile page, you actually have 4 feeds. So 4 feeds on the web, 3 feeds on the app, where you have your primary news feed, you've got your articles feed, and you have your shorts feed. And then on the website, we have it to where we also list all of your comments where you posted on somebody else's post. So that's its own feed right there. And you can actually pin different ones in each one of those feeds. So you can pin your top article in the articles feed. You pin your top post.
So it's already in there. I just hadn't looked far enough for it. That's a beautiful feature.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wonderful.
So where'd the name PickAx come from?
We were brainstorming ideas, and one of the things that I set is I had like 2 conditions. I wanted it to emote more manual labor, because free speech is messy, and also we're much more of a meritocracy platform, where you don't just, like, I feel like on the rest of these platforms, you go on there, and because they have the algorithms, you just post and leave, and then hope the algorithm picks you up and you go about your merry day. And then in all that, over on PickAx, you have to earn it. Now, once you earn your audience, then it's great because you access everything, but you got to put in the work. Like, this is a true meritocracy. You don't just come on and post, because if nobody's following you, then they're not going to see it. So you actually got to go out there, engage with people, be personal, like all that. So I wanted to emote a little bit more manual labor. And then I also wanted something you could turn into a verb. So like with us, if you like something, you pick it. If you don't, you axe it. And so that's built into our, cool, liking or disliking, features. So that's really where when we were throwing ideas around, I forget who ultimately threw it out there, but I was like, I can make that work, and then it just stuck, and it worked.
So where can I get one of those fancy PickAx hats?
Well, number one, I could send you one. Number two, we're about to officially launch our own merch store here very soon. We're gonna have the PickAx hats. We're gonna have sweatshirts. We're gonna have hoodies, T-shirts. We're gonna have coffee mugs, like the whole deal. So we'll have all that on there. So we're also using we'll be using a lot of our merch as incentives for our referral program. So if you go on to the website, you can actually grab the referral code, and we're actually going to use a lot of merch and giveaways and stuff like that as incentives for, like, the more people you refer, we'll hook you up with more merch and stuff like that. So
that's cool. All these things that Twitch used to do, like 90 years ago.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that again, I've been in and around social media as a creator, both myself and then my wife, I'm in politics. My wife is in a completely different industry, in like the food industry and all that kind of stuff. And so I've seen how all the social media platforms work, and what they ended up always doing is they love helping the creators when it benefits them. But that's not their ultimate goal. And so like, for example, like what Instagram will do is anytime they come out with a new feature, they'll reach out to all the influencers and say, hey, use this new feature. So when they came out with their Instagram Reels, their financial incentive for creators to switch from just posting photos to doing the Reels was astronomical. Like, a lot of people made a lot of money, and that lasted for about a month and a half. And then all of a sudden it went back to jack squat. And I feel like that's kind of what's happened with a lot of these platforms, is like, they'll send out merch, they'll send out money, they'll do all these kinds of things, and they'll use you as the creator to build and to grow and all of that. And then they're going to pull that away because they realize, well, we've already got our millions of followers or millions of users. We don't need them anymore. So now we can just keep all the profits for ourselves. And so like the way that I've built, PickAx, is that as a business model, we only make money when we help our creators make money. And I wanted that specifically to go indefinitely, to where if we're selling ads, then we're taking a significant percentage of that, and we're going to divvy it up amongst our content creators. We've got an affiliate advertising program that we're rolling out. We're going to be rolling out an email newsletter feature similar to Substack. And the way we're going to monetize that is we're going to be able to go to brands and then leverage those email lists and say, hey, you want to do some sponsored emails, and then we'll connect the brand with the influencer creator with that. And then that's an opportunity for the brand to pay to do a sponsored email with that creator's email list that creator can create. And then, they'll pay us a certain percentage, they'll pay the creator a certain percentage. And so everything that we're doing, we're building it out from the standpoint of is that
so
I'm
less like
incentivized to help
Substack,
the
more like Beehive.
Imagine instead of sending a nuke out of country and they send one back, you just both send each other a care package. How fantastic.
Right?
What a novel idea of instead of mutually assured destruction, mutually assured profit. Yeah, is it guaranteed to be stable forever? No. But is it better than here's a new feature in a month I'm going to rip that rug back out from under you, be ready? And they don't even say that. I mean, you know to expect that you've seen the pattern so many times, but I'd have less of a problem with these things if, hey, we've implemented this new feature, use it, here's the payout. Disclaimer, once we've reached our goal of X users, we plan on returning this so that you don't shift your whole business model into something and have your life planned around these things. And don't get me wrong, if you're making money off the internet, social media ads, never put all your eggs in one basket. It's asinine. You have nobody to blame for yourself at that point. But at the same time, if somebody's working with you, I won't say as a business partner, but kind of as a business partner, affiliations, as you said, I feel like there's a certain level of respect due that's just not being given out by companies in today's climate.
It reminds me of, as a musician, when you play music at a local level, there are bands who will be your best friend and you guys help each other. And there will also be bands that just see you as competition for the same slot that they wanted somewhere else. And they will do nothing but talk shit. And those bands disappear because they're toxic. And it always blew my mind, especially like I live in like a rural town. Like I don't do what I used to do. I live in a rural town and I play like within a 3-hour market from here. What? Why you give me looks? I play within like a 3-hour market.
I'll give you your shit once the live icon goes away about your statement.
Okay. But yeah, no, I play within like a 3-hour market. And so whenever I see a local band being like discriminatory against somebody else, I'm like, dude, we're all doing the same thing. And there's more than enough shows to go around. Why don't you boost your people instead of shitting on them?
Totally. Well, and the thing is that I think for a lot of platforms, they get into hot water because they kind of pull the rug out from under creators. And I think that this is where Rumble kind of got in trouble with from a PR standpoint when it comes to their creators, where they've got this creator program that's paying out X number of dollars, and creators are accustomed to that money coming in based upon, because you can kind of calculate, okay, I get this many impressions, this is how much money I can make and all that. And then all of a sudden, then they do the payouts and it's 75% less than what it was. If they would have just been transparent and say like, hey guys, just so you guys know, next month it's going down because we have to redirect funds to come over here, they wouldn't be getting the same blowback that they're getting right now, because it was just creators find out when it hits their bank account that, hey, I'm making less money this month. And
look at so I was actually, that was the one fun thing that came out of COVID for me, was I got into the gaming streaming space because I had never done that. I've always been a gamer. And my first introduction to streaming games was not Twitch. It was Facebook gaming. And Facebook gaming was paying out like pretty freaking good for new creators. And then they redesigned their algorithms again and again and again. And when they did that, like the amount of complaints that like people who followed you didn't even know you went live, all that kind of stuff was happening. And then the payouts dropped. And now look, like Facebook gaming doesn't exist as a platform anymore.
Yeah.
And also Twitch sucks as a platform for that.
Yeah.
So
did Facebook gaming go away? Like there's no streamers for Facebook gaming anymore?
Facebook gaming as a platform no longer exists.
Yeah.
Shocker. You had users getting banned, and then they had direct lines of communication to Facebook support teams once they hit certain points. These were Facebook partners, essentially.
Yeah, they had a partner.
And we're getting banned. We're being told we don't know why you got banned, and we're taking 3 months to unban them. Like, what were you doing as a platform?
I specifically remember
plenty of issues outside of just their implementations. On every browser and on my own devices, if I go to a channel that I know is going live, and I go to their chat early, and I get ready to redeem their first, or I'm talking in the chat, it is a roll of the dice with, I would say, less than a 20% chance on whether or not when they go live, my WebSocket refreshes and that content starts rolling automatically without me having to manually refresh the page. It's 2026. What the fuck are you doing? Neopets had refreshing WebSockets in 2005.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Guy online, bro.
Well, I get it, but again, I think with all of this, when we're dealing with platforms, I think the biggest thing is communication and transparency. And I think that's where it's like if you go on a PickAx right now, we set up the creator dashboard. So once you become a content creator, you get access to an analytics dashboard, and on there the right in big bold letters, basically we tell you like, here's the metrics that you need to pay attention to for the rev share. And 40% is going to be this number, which is verified engagement, so engagement from verified accounts. This percent, the other three are each 20%, and we say it right there in the box. This is for verified followers. This is for post views. This is for article views, and we tell you exactly so that now you don't necessarily know what your final, like, let's say, rev share is going to be, because it's relative to how much money is in the pot compared to what everybody else on the platform is doing, because it's a rev share. So you're taking a percentage of that, but you can calculate your metrics and you can see in real time, this is what I'm doing. This is what I could do better, all of that. And then compare it to previous months and all that kind of stuff. Like, to me, being as transparent as possible alleviates a lot of that blowback that I think a lot of these platforms get when they make changes.
Now, with that, as the rev share protocol, which is more of you guys working with them for, again, the mutually assured success rather than destruction, are you planning on allowing, when these pages aspects comes on, these multiple user things, similar to the Facebook's subscribe or the Twitch's subscribe, outside of even the streaming element of things, are people going to be allowed to have users that subscribe to them in a sense of like, hey, here's a small, I'm not paying for your service specifically, but like, here is a subscription or a donation or whatever it is, to help fund the creators as a more direct form of payment method? I'm assuming you'll take your cut when that happens to some degree, being the platform, if it goes to you guys, you're going to be paying for the transactional charges and stuff like that. But is that already out, or is that all on the roadmap?
Yeah, so that's, I would say, partially out. So right now you can subscribe to somebody in the sense that you would get an email notification when if they post an article. And I always tell everybody that the next step is going to be the email newsletter feature where you could actually send your articles in their entirety as an email. I'm already beta testing that myself. And so I've completely left Substack, and I'm using exclusively PickAx. So I brought over all of my contacts and email lists and all that kind of stuff. And so I do that. On the website version of PickAx, you can actually become a paid subscriber. Right now, you can't on the website because Apple has found a way to circumvent a judge's court order on limiting the ability to send people off site when it comes to the app. So technically speaking, Apple has to allow an app to be able to have a button that would take you to the website to be able to pay. They can't have a monopoly on that 30% commission that they charge for every transaction within the app. The problem, so what they've done is they've used a bunch of different legalese and loopholes in order to make it extremely difficult. And we followed all the protocols, everything that they told us to do. And they would not allow us to get approved within the Apple App Store unless we didn't include the payment buttons that send people to the website. Even though a judge...
Now, hear me out.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Now, hear me out. There's actually a really cool workaround. Really easy legislation. Anybody can do this. Don't need to pay a lawyer. Quit buying Apple products.
That's
They're
fair.
dog shit.
That's fair.
That vividly reminds me of back.
I have
Facebook
a MacBook, an iPhone, and a Mac Mini. Fuck you! I'll die on my Apple products.
Back in the Facebook gaming days, it was like people could sub to your channel, so they'd pay like $5 a month or something like that, and they were a sub. And everybody on Facebook gaming used to say, "Hey guys, I appreciate it if you sub to me. However, if you sub to me, sub from your browser and do not sub from your phone app, because it was costing. They pushed the cost along to the subscriber. So for you to buy a sub on an iPhone through the Facebook app, it was going to cost you like $6.50 or $7 a month, as opposed to the $5 a month that you would get charged if you were doing it via the browser."
Yep. Yeah, it's
and that wasn't
crazy.
just for subscriptions. Facebook ate shit and had a lot of spam because
their version of bits.
Stars were the biggest forms. Like, don't get me wrong, everybody loves having a subscriber, but stars were big on Facebook because people would drop nukes worth of stars. And if they did it through their mobile, it scaled. It wasn't just like, oh, you're going to pay the transactional charge. If you paid for a big boy one, it was a percentage of it. It was a loophole in their system of, yes, it is the charge, but also we asked for more because we could, and we knew you wouldn't look for it because greedy.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I mean, for the bigger packages where you could buy like $99 worth of stars, you were looking at like a $20-$30 difference.
Apple's always had questionable business practices when it comes to their app store.
But their products are
they had
so
questionable
good.
business practices when it came to their inventor. What did you expect?
I mean, also using slave labor. I mean, that's a problem too. So, you know.
Oh, yeah, I'm just saying, which one?
I like their UI. But they make such great products.
But I like their UI.
Yeah, that's it. I like their UI. I like how everything connects so seamlessly between my computers and my phone. It's brilliant.
Well, that's what I was going to say. So speaking of we were talking about like Flock and Signal Trace and all those things, everything that's tracking everything that we do, right? My dad has always been a PC guy, with the exception of he's had an iPhone and he has like an iPad. And his PC died like 2 weeks ago, and he was like, I don't know what to get. Like, I'm looking stuff and whatever. The man doesn't contact me at all and ask the nerd his opinion. And he just buys a brand new like $2,200 iMac. So he's like, telling me it's the coolest thing. Like, you know how like when you like open your Windows PC and it like prompts you for like a PIN or whatever you use to log into your PC. And I'm like, yeah, I have a PC. I have a PIN. And he's like, it reads my Apple Watch and knows my Apple Watch is within that proximity, and it automatically logs me in. And I'm like, that should scare you more than it does.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Well, it's kind of like if you go shopping at Whole Foods, you can now just scan your handprint and to pay.
I hate that.
No, I did too. I walked in there one time and then the cashier was like, Would you like to scan your handprint? And that would make it easier to show up. And I'm like, nope. Nope. Jeff Bezos cannot have my handprint. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm good on that. Thanks.
Yeah.
Exactly.
His handprint looks awful. Like it looks an awful lot like a scrotum. What happened?
Time to dick. that old study.
Yeah.
Well, doesn't quite work with a biometric scanner in the same way, but kind of. The image found its way there.
I mean, all it takes is a little bit of programming, and they could use that, I'm sure, too. So,
yeah.
I got flagged. This was a while back. I got flagged.
terrible.
You know how like you're supposed to put your signature on your card, and like you are always supposed to use the same signature when you use your card something digitally. Well, for years I didn't take that seriously, like in my younger years, and I would just draw a dick. Well, as I got older and I bought something a little bit more in the like, hey, this is an adult purchase.
I became a dad.
I signed my name,
and I realized I was signing
and
a
they
dick everywhere I
blocked
went.
the transaction until I called and they were like, well, the signature didn't match. I was like, I get that. But as a facility, and I get that you have a feature, when the reviewer looked at it and realized these are dicks, this is his name, the inclination of this is the signature, this is him being an asshole.
Listen, I'm gonna give you that. However, I also have clients who are in their 50s and 60s and cannot read or write, but they could draw a dick.
I mean, for the longest time, you could just sign it with an X. So I mean, why couldn't you do that too?
Yeah.
Since
we started touching on dicks,
although out here in communist California where I live, it's like the whole reason why we had such long elections, counting ballots was because you had a bunch of untrained people, basically matching signature verifications. A bunch of volunteers that were getting paid $18 an hour to count votes are
of your tax money.
Right, exactly. And then all it takes is Rowan's signature over there, and they're gonna be like, "Oh, what is going on over here?"
Exactly.
Look, if you're gonna make me vote between two dicks, I'm gonna vote with a dick.
Fair enough.
That's a good point. I like it.
Fair enough. And I think that is a great point to end on. So with that said, this has been an absolute blast, Jeff. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
thank you. I appreciate it.
I mean, Robert, can I ask a question here? Like, and this doesn't need to be part of the thing. You can snip this out if you want.
Oh, I'm not snipping it out. You're gonna fucking face up to your sins, bud.
You're gonna own it, and then somebody's gonna fight you at a live event.
No. I was about to do something that I don't think I technically have the right to do. You told me you want me on more frequently, but I'm not technically part of that. I think you guys should be bringing Jeff back on at some point here. I think this is something that you should definitely work towards, because it's super advantageous to have someone that has this insight in something that is such a critical part of our infrastructure in today's world. Social media is not going anywhere. And he's doing something that others have tried and have abandoned. And we can be a part of the journey in his success, or a part of the journey in his failure. And by all means, I truly hope it ends up being all success for you. But I think it would be super cool because, I mean, whether it's your religious talks, whether it's social media talks, your politics talks, conspiracy talks,
we cover a wide range of stuff.
Yeah. Well, it'd be a lot of fun. And I can tell you, I haven't even gotten into my theories on Bigfoot. So, we still got a lot more to talk about.
Yeah, I was gonna say I would love to explore that. Like, give it a couple months, because so Bobby told me a month plus ago, he was like, download PickAx, check it out. And I have a job, I have a band, I have kids. I downloaded it and then I never opened it again. And now that we've had this conversation, and I'm like sitting here, I'm looking. So I finally, and also, I have very little patience for apps. I like browser-based things.
Right.
And now that I'm sitting here, I'm looking at it on a browser, and I'm like, okay, I can get behind this. I'm really excited to like kind of dive in, because it reminds me
that he uses gray notes and desaturated colors that don't keep you on forever and ever and ever, like a fucking sigh.
Well, I intentionally went with the dark background because I'm just like, I feel like the white is so harsh and stimulating, and I'm like, it's just the cool colors. It's just a little bit more relaxing, and it's less just like bam in your face,
Anytime I open something and I feel like I just got flashbanged.
Don't you wish there was a better color that blended so well with the darker hues than blue, though? It always ends up being blue because it's just the next best one to go right with.
Right. Well, yeah, because when you're going through the colors, it's like what other color is like calming and like you're not going to go with like a light red.
According to the Navy, it's seafoam green.
Oh yeah. No, actually, no. I'm like sitting here looking at like the PC based application, and I'm like, this UI looks dope, and that's one of the big reasons I don't use things, is because I look at it and I hate the UI.
Yeah.
So no, I'm excited, and also like just kind of on the, this actually not to once again make another correlation to Twitch, but in the days when I got into Twitch, obviously they're algorithm based, and their algorithm is dog shit. But one of the big ways, if you were not hitting their algorithm, to like kind of gain a following, was like to actually go when you made your money in Twitch when you were not live by going to other people's streams that had a similar level following, a similar like roadmap. Yeah, and you talked to them, you networked, you hung out in their chat, you did all that, and I feel like that was beneficial. And that's kind of what I love about it. Like, I'm just reading this kind of like these comments on some of these posts on here, and I'm like, oh, cool. People are just like here to hang out and have a good time and like have a good conversation. And
well, if you go over to the top users section, it's fascinating because pretty much everybody that's in the top 20 accounts, you could say, they're all like, when you think about it, they're not a big name. Like we've got OAN, we've got Vigilant Fox, we've got Children's Help Defense, we've got recognizable people on there, but none of them are in the top 20. It's all like people that like built it organically. They either got their friends to come over to PickAx. A lot of them just built it organically through commenting on other people's posts and building friendships and whatever. Like it's a much more organic thing than like, it's just like, it's like, I'm bringing over OAN, I'm bringing over some of the big accounts, but also it's like the organic conversations to me are like dominating PickAx right now.
It's better than the whole like you made one post and it caught something and went viral, and
this might piss off some other social media.
In our formula, the way one of the things that we're doing this for the formula for what shows up as trending, as well as for like the top users, and then also for the rev share. We're actually doing a square root model to where when we're calculating the numbers, we're actually taking the square root of it. So then that way you're not having one account that gets like a bajillion views that dominates the entire rev share and the entire, ecosystem of like trending and all that kind of stuff. So by taking the square root down, it actually evens out the playing field to where
you're doing normalization across the data so that you have a more accurate curve on what's going on instead of the outlier mutation.
Right. Exactly. It evens it out without penalizing somebody for being
Cool.
successful, if that makes sense.
That is freaking awesome.
Yeah, no, this excites me. I'm amped to
I'm
like
sorry,
dive in
Robert. I know you said you were looking to end it, but
You're
like,
good. You're good. You're good.
So I'll just give you guys homework next time. We do have to talk about Bigfoot because
I want that.
So my wife's great uncle is the one who actually coined the term Bigfoot. And
No shit.
and the motto of the family is "We believe." And the stories I've heard about Bigfoot of like family members who have had run-ins is bonkers.
Oh,
I love
dude,
it.
I'm down. I'm so down.
that's why I brought it up, because it was cool that we got to touch on PickAx. It's cool that we got to ask some questions that, has there been other ones who have answered? Sure. Have they beat around the bush more than what we got here? I also think it's sure. I think what you're doing even at the very beginning, and I mean, I think the argument can be said here that, well, anything's easy at the beginning. I mean, yeah, it's hard to get started, but once you're there, you can claim your morals all day until the bills start piling up. And there's going to be people who are going to say and scapegoat anything they can to put blame. I think you need to keep doing that, because it was super fun to get the details. I think it'd be super cool for us, like I said, to catch back up with him from time to time. I think Robert fully and Ryan fully agree with that.
Absolutely.
But then to also be able to digress to the other side of things, the religious side of things, the conspiracy side of things, the science side of things, and be able to go off for brief moments of seriousness, but also back into silly. Just like PickAx. Felt seamless, felt holistic. It was super good.
Yeah,
it's super interesting that you just said that too, because we recently did a rebrand of this podcast. So it was originally the second iteration of a show that I created called The Spin Cycle, and it was a news show. And this time around, we started out kind of reacting to current events, and we had people on talking about current events, and it was a really structured show. And then the more we got into just having fun with it, we're like, we want to get rid of this name. We want to get rid of this connotation that we're just going to be another news commentary show. And so we tried to keep it somewhat similar, and we just somehow came up with Spin State. And it gives us a lot more creative freedom to do those things.
I get to be a lot more chaotic neutral now.
Yeah, exactly. So, dude, I would absolutely love that, because dude, we have weeks where it's like, well, we don't have anybody booked. It's just, Ryan and I, or Ryan, Rowan and I, and we sit and we just shoot the shit on whatever comes off the top of the head. And so, dude, you have an open invite anytime. I mean,
it'd be great to dive into more of, without doing too much, because again, I don't want us to hyper focus any one thing, I don't think, but to do the bigger dives on your views in the world going along with your religion and how those might have pushed you to want to create what you're creating. But I feel like your religious views and how you talk about stuff, and the little bits that I've watched of you, is a heavy motivator for you and how you're approaching this. But it'd just be super cool to have those kinds of conversations where it doesn't need to dominate, and people can watch and get more of you and get more of us and get more info on the side of this whole internet and the social media and the evolving technologies that they don't get to see. How often, I don't know your role. I didn't do enough research. I'm assuming you're you're the CEO, right?
Yeah. I started it. Yeah.
How often do you have a small podcast coming in, starting up on a social media that just happened to be affiliated with another area that we were started at, that they got talking about, that's interviewing the CEO? I got less than 4 people. I'm following 4 people. I got 1 follower on the thing. I know you've got a lot more traction already starting. It's not like it's insane, but you've got more traction going. And it was just a fun conversation while still making sure everybody got that info.
Right. Well,
it's super uncomfortable.
And it started from me randomly DMing him and being like, hey, come on the podcast.
Totally. Well, because it's fun too, because I much more enjoy the long form shows and podcasts, and because I've got a publicist, and they get me on shows, and like AJ does a phenomenal, probably one of the best in the business, if not the best. So I go on Newsmax, I go on OAN, I go on all those things. It's fun to talk to Matt Gaetz and talk to people like that, but also I get 8 minutes to try to unpack something. Sure. Or like I had to debate Matt Gaetz on his own show one time in an 8-minute segment about Donald Trump with the federal government buying into a private entity. And I'm just like, I need more than 8 minutes to unpack the founding of this country and the origins of the debate on government ownership of private companies. And I'm just like, I would much rather sit down for an hour or two and like dive into stuff, because then you can actually unpack it too, you know?
Well, you can actually get to know how somebody actually feels. More than in 8 minutes, you're almost just spitting talking points at that point.
Right. It's great for like PR to get out there, but
Sure.
it's also really
Absolutely.
I would not function in an environment like that.
This functions really well as like the opposite of an omnibus. When we get to here and when you have these kind of long conversations, it's not a yes or a no. It's a yes or a no. And here's the exact reason why. And I feel like that gets people, like when people watch this, they watch you on the other podcasts, because like I said, I've seen you on several things. They get to develop more of the idea of who you are as a person when it comes to running these kinds of things and running your daily life, etc. And obviously there needs to be certain like roadblocks that you put up there because you need your own life that's separate from it. But we haven't had this in anything else that I've seen. I mean, the closest thing we've had was Tom on MySpace being on my friends list when I started up right away. And that was funny as heck that he was just at his desk. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So it's super cool because I feel like the way that you handle this kind of stuff, again, with the silliness, but the seriousness, the talking points that don't have to be a very strict outline. And I have you on a TV show and I'm swinging influence at you to make you answer the way I want. Instead, it lets people develop a sense of trust in you, which in turn is going to develop that sense of trust in your brain.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's also
100%.
nice for me to get out of the constant, politics, because that's where I came out of. And, I kind of got blackballed out of MAGA when I backed RFK Jr. and, obviously he came back into the fold, but I didn't fully get accepted back in. So I still, it's a weird thing, but also like now it's like, I enjoy talking conspiracy theories or music or movies or sports. And like, it's crazy. Like I played basketball in high school with like, in the same tournaments with like LeBron James and like all these guys where I'm like, they're old. It makes me feel old because they're all like retired now. And I'm like, I played against you. I guarded you. It's crazy,
Yeah.
I've toured with a bunch of super famous bands, and now I'm realizing all their albums that we all know and love are like 25-year anniversary albums, and I'm going, fuck.
Yeah, totally. It's wild, like thinking through some of those things, and you're like, I don't know. It's crazy. It's crazy because like I just turned 40 in March, and I'm just like, my wife will always make the joke. She's like, well, you're almost a 50, which means technically you're halfway to 100. So like you're basically really old. So
here's the question: how much younger is your wife?
A couple years younger. Yeah.
Say mine's 8 years.
Site.
So
I
get it every day.
I made this fucking site. Why do I have to scroll so far back to select my fucking birthday?
Exactly. All right. So before we wrap up and get out of here, Jeff, go ahead and tell everybody where they can follow you. I'm going to give you one shameless plug. Down in the description, guys, is my personal referral link. We'll get one up for the show eventually, but my personal referral link to join PickAx is in the description. Just do it. I know people are skeptical of social media and new technologies, new websites, new platforms. Just do it. It is absolutely worthwhile. And I'm trying to break my habit of like just post and dip. It's ingrained, so I've got to try to like get away from it. But the platform is a genuinely incredible experience from the very start. So join it. Click the link in the description. Jeff, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, and you'll find some very interesting characters on PickAx that you've never seen before, but like they're like the top user. Like there's like Feral Housewife. Like everybody on the entire planet should be following Feral Housewife because like it's just like pure entertainment all the time. And there's a handful of people that are like that too, but
and she's just a sweetheart, absolute sweetheart,
100%. And the really cool thing is like she literally has the top account on PickAx, and she's getting her rev share, and she's just like, I'm going to use it, and I'm going to go over to like, everybody who's on PickAx who's on Rumble, and I'm going to start paying out subs and gifting subs and like doing all that kind of stuff. And she's just like, I just like building a community and hanging out and having fun and whatever it is. And so that's kind of the mentality of a lot of people, which is fun and refreshing, I think, too. But you guys can download the app in either App Store. Follow, obviously you use the referral link that'll take you to the website. You guys can sign up and then download the app, because that way they get credit for the referrals and all that. But you can follow me, because you guys can subscribe to my email on my PickAx account. I've got the Jeff Dornik show, which we go live on Rumble and on X, and then I post obviously the Rumble video on PickAx, so you guys can tune in there as well. I try to bring on interesting guests that I find interesting, pick their brains. I've had Kash Patel on, and I'm deeply disappointed because everything he said on my show is the opposite of what he's doing now.
That sucks.
But it's like, those are the kinds of people. It's like, I want to pick their brain, and I'm just curious, and I go into my shows without a script, which makes campaign managers really not like me, because they want me to give them their 10 questions ahead of time, and I'm like, nope, sorry, not happening. And but I try to have fun with it. I try to get curious, and I try to get down to kind of the foundational worldview on my show, as opposed to the day-to-day politics. I don't care about the day-to-day. I don't care about what team you're on. I'm more curious about like what people actually believe and why do they believe it and all that kind of stuff. So you guys can check that out on Rumble. Just look up Jeff Dornik, and you guys will find the show. But yeah, those are the best place to find me, PickAx, and then my Rumble channel. So
all those links will be in the description below as well.
perfect.
On to you, Ryan. Give your little promo, your shameless plug, and
my shameless plug.
Yeah.
My shameless plug that you can, if you're a gun dude. Sorry, Jeff, I don't think you're allowed to have those in California. But if you're a gun dude and you are looking at holsters, that I have a referral deal with Eclipse holsters. They're phenomenal. They're what I carry my gun in. Oh, look at this. Thanks, Jamie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if I gotta stop sharing it for a second.
You have to verify your age. But yeah, if you need a holster, check them out, and they're pretty awesome. And if you use the promo code Ryan Thomas, you will get 15% off, and then they cut me a tiny percentage. And then no, they're dope. And actually, I wish I had mine in here. It's currently in my car, but at one point, I don't know if they still offer it. They had a Stormtrooper print, which I'm a Star Wars geek, but I also think it's hysterical because Stormtroopers are notorious for not being able to hit their shots. So
yeah, and I mean they've got custom gear.
Oh yeah,
you can
awesome.
You can build your own holster from the ground up.
Yeah,
wallets,
you can go
trays.
in and you can go in and pick the gun that you're carrying. You can also a lot of times pick the light that you have on it, because it's all custom molded to the specific light. You can pick like multiple styles of retention holsters. You can add that little wing that's on that one that is actually super cool for inside the waistband. It helps it print less. And I carry one of them in skinny jeans, and it is invisible on me, so that's always super nice.
And even their featured designs are at a very reasonable price for a good holster.
I low key kind of love that Skull and Rose one. I'm probably gonna say
it's pretty bad.
So yeah, that's my little pitch on that. But yeah, no, you can find me on X, on Instagram, and now on PickAx.
You didn't tell them what the code was, genius.
Wait, I did. Yeah, I did. The code is Ryan Thomas. I think I was telling them the code and you interrupted me with sharing the screen. But yeah, The code's Ryan Thomas.
15% off.
Yeah. So but you can you can follow me X, Instagram, and now PickAx at Ryan Thomas Talks on all three of those, because consistent branding is key. And I like having conversations with people. I like debating people. I like talking shit. So hit me up.
He does like talking shit.
I do like talking shit. Ask my congressman.
I don't have any shameless plugs. I got my cat. But I all I'm here to do is talk some craziness. If you guys want to talk more of it, about anything you guys see on the show, or just talk to somebody else that's associates with these two idiots, by all means reach out. Right now I'm probably going to be switching off of a lot of the major social medias just because stuff I don't agree with. So I'd say our best place right now is going to be on tonight's main theme. That's going to be PickAx for Rowan Michael Madden.
Right on. And as always, I'm Real Robert Herr on X, Real Robert Herr _ on Instagram, Real Robert Herr on PickAx, and you can follow the show pretty much everywhere you get your podcasts at Spin State Pod. That links down in the description as well. We also have a partnership with a company called Beehive. It's a newsletter platform. If you use our code down there at the bottom, you will get a 14-day free trial to their top tier plan and then 20% off your first 3 months. They've had a lot of cool tools come in. They're podcast hosting now. They are building communities. They have your initial newsletters. Fantastic platform. We've been using them for a while for ours, which you can subscribe to at unspun.beehive.com. That is up and live. We also have a merch store now. That is linked down in the description. We have one shirt up, and we are not making any money on it. It's the base price that our storefront has. We use Sticker Mule, by the way. Great company. That design goes out for the base minimum price. We make nothing. We just want to get it into your hands. So that said, this was a great show. And Jeff, I'll make you a deal. You send me one of those hats, I'll send you one of our shirts.
Sounds like a plan. We'll make it happen.
Perfect. All righty, guys. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll catch you in the next one. We love you. Bye-bye.